Ethan Larson. There's my man, Chad. Chad, tell the people how you doing.
Man, I'm doing good. It's an early Sunday morning. Had some technical difficulties a little bit earlier, but we are ready to go. We are ready to work on this Sunday.
I'm not ashamed to say that I overslept, okay? I'm not ashamed
Yeah,
to say it.
I tried to hide behind saying technical difficulties. I wanted to give you a pass, but yeah,
I appreciate that, but the people deserve to know. But
fair enough.
We're still back. We're still ready for a new pod today. Today we're going to be mainly focusing on our upcoming soccer season that we have just on the horizon. Community Shield was this past weekend. Got Premier League games coming back next weekend, or I think next Friday. So
Yep.
Getting excited
United,
for that.
Fulham.
Going to do a deep dive into the Premier League. Going to do a little bit of a more shallow dive into the other top 4 leagues. Going to explain the new Champions League format, how that can affect clubs. So if you are a soccer person or someone that wants to get into soccer maybe, then this is definitely the podcast for you. Before that, we have to address
shout out
the
my
elephant.
soccer guys.
Exactly. Before that, we have to address the elephant in the room. Team USA did lose to Serbia in the semifinal of basketball. They also somehow lost the semifinal or the final to France after losing the semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to watch the games. I just saw on Twitter that
How
Jason
mad people
Tatum
were.
wasn't playing enough.
Yeah,
I
so now all of a
assumed
sudden the
that
U.S.
they must
sucked.
have lost both games. I don't know. I could watch everything else, but I couldn't watch the basketball. Chad, tell us about how they lost to Serbia, or am I missing something?
Just as a quick aside, I know this is our 3rd episode, so the people have a pretty good idea of who we are at this point. But for anyone that's confused, Ethan loves to just... I love it too, actually. Let me not even just or isolate him. We love to just talk about people's horrible takes on social media. I feel like that's probably 75 to 90% of the reason why we're actually doing this podcast right now. So you can have them to either thank or blame, depending on how you feel about us. But yeah, the reason we started is because before we were like, well, these 45 minute to hour long phone calls we were having on a weekly basis to just knock down people's Twitter takes. I was like, maybe someone will actually listen to it. So, but to go back and answer your question, I will spoil the drama. The U.S. did not lose to Serbia. They actually, I know, believe it or not, they ended up winning 95-91. And even crazier, they did end up winning the gold medal game against France.
Oh.
I think the final was 98-87.
Oh, that's because Tatum played.
Yeah, I gotta say, look, people just always forget like what the Olympics is. It's like, hey, and to be fair, in the last 2 Olympics, we've kind of had 2 to 3 guys that kind of going into the tournament, we knew like, all right, when it gets to nut crunching time, here are going to be the 2 to 3 guys that aren't playing. Like they were making it in the. When the tournament first started, people were shocked about, oh my God, Kerr's going with a 10-man rotation. It's like, literally every Olympic coach that's ever coached the team has done that. The difference is just now the rest of the world is so much better that you don't have a full half of garbage time where you get to play your 11th and 12th guy. So I think the 10-man rotation thing that everyone was saw that was like flabbergasted by, it's like that's something that's been going on for a while. And when you look at it, and Kerr actually made adjustments when it got to the gold medal game, so I give him credit. Did not end up playing Derek White, ended up inserting Tatum kind of into that spot in the rotation. I think Tatum played 11 minutes in the final, but Kerr didn't really go to the bench a lot. I mean, it was the closing group that was out there was the starters, and then Anthony Davis in for Embiid, which I think kind of everyone really thought was their best lineup, was going to be a lineup that they played, in the later rounds when it really got serious. The one question mark, I guess, in that lineup going into it would have been Booker. But I thought Booker had a really good tournament. He played as a really good connector as far as he upped his defensive level, I thought, more than what you see from him on Phoenix. And then shooting-wise, he was just a guy who did not need the ball to make shots, which I know sounds crazy, but he turned himself into a catch-and-shoot guy. It reminded me a lot of his time when he was with Kentucky in college, his 1 year there, where, and obviously,
bench, no?
yeah, exactly. I think he started like 2 games, but obviously a much, much more skilled, better version of that now. He's one of the best players in the NBA, which, I mean, people who liked him out of college, I don't think anyone would have said that. But he was the connector with the team, and I felt like he was kind of the one that made that five-man unit make sense. Because if you take him out, maybe you don't have enough shooting. Maybe you don't necessarily have the perimeter defense. Curry's up and down. Bron, I think when he wants to, can guard someone, but he doesn't always want to. So then that kind of mixed that up. But Booker was more than willing to take tough defensive assignments. So I salute him. But we're burying the lead if we're talking about anyone besides Steph Curry first. I mean, the last 2 games, 17 made threes, 9 in the semis, 8 in the final. Ethan, I know you've had a love-hate relationship with Steph. I feel like you're loving him right now. How'd you feel about what he did?
Yeah, so again, for just a little bit more context for the listeners, I'm obviously a Cavs fan, so I had to see him stumble over my hopes and dreams for about 3 years of my life.
You guys got him once.
I was a big Curry hater for a long, long time, but I mean, there's no denying what he did in the Olympics, and to be able to cheer for that was a very, very unique experience, obviously. And being able to see, that last 3, obviously the 3 before it were amazing, but that last 2-step back, running back travel thing where it's like, where I got 2 like 6'8" guys, 8 plus guys closing out on me and doing this, and I'm gonna shoot a shot that only gets shot in someone's front yard, for it's gonna go like straight up in the air and then just fall in. It was really outrageous to see when I was watching it. I did actually watch the semifinal and the final, by the way. That opening was just a joke. And then, like, me just watching that game, it was just like, man, I mean, I see it now. I even had a debate with someone I was watching the game with, and we were talking about best point guard of all time before the game even started. So this was before the game. And then I watched that game, and I'm just like, because he was making a compelling case for Curry, saying, like, what has Magic done that he hasn't? And I was just like, I was more leaning on the, it's just hard to make such a great impact on the game when you're 6'3". And obviously 6'3" to, like, us that's the tall dude, but 6'3" in the NBA is a little guy. So it's like, it's just so hard. It's kind of like how Isaiah Thomas, it's like everyone recognizes the Pistons Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
Everyone recognizes how great he is or was. But, you just can't get in that final tier because it's just so damn hard to impact the game that much as that kind of a guy. But I think kind of the way that he's revolutionized shooting has taken it to the point where it's like he's not now the rule, but that exception can exist in a way that it really hasn't been able to before. And, I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't really see what separates him as being the greatest point guard of all time, hopping into that top 10 players of all time, honestly. You can try and find reasons, but to me at this point it's just a whole bunch of old heads being like, oh, you didn't see this guy play, you didn't see that guy play. And it's like, well, I did see this guy play, and he kills every year, and he has 4 rings, and even when I give him crap for not making the playoffs, it's never because of him. It's not because he's hurt. It's not because he's averaging 20 when he should be averaging 28. It's not because he's not shooting well. So, what is your take on that? Just, very briefly. Like, do you think he's in that final tier? Obviously, like, the final tier is, like, LeBron and MJ. But, like, is he in, like, that final where it's like, this guy is a top 10 player of all time? Again, this is not because of today. Yesterday, but yesterday showed it.
Yeah. I think when he won that 4th title in 2021, 22. Okay, in 20. Oh yeah. When they won
was 23. And he was 22. And
okay. Yeah, keeping me straight. But yeah, when he won that 4th title in 22, where that one was a lot different than it's weird to say, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's kind of like the LeBron arc, right? Where he wins. I think when you can say although when they win those first 3 each. It's like, man, these guys are like, they're in that group of all-timers. Obviously, Bron to a higher level because he's a better player. But then when they get that 4th one, when it's like...
by the way, LeBron. No
Yeah,
big deal.
exactly. Triple-double in the semifinal against Serbia at age 39. Him playing point guard for the team was probably my favorite thing to watch besides the Curry shooting performances. But to go back to Curry real quick, I think he is in that final group. And when I say that final group, look, we're talking about like kind of 8 to 12 ish guys, depending on where you're talking about. Obviously, I think for me, I still have Magic fourth. Like I still think Magic is the fourth, fifth, depending on how I feel about the day. It's between him and Russell, kind of for that fourth spot. But 9 finals in 12 years for Magic, I think, just puts him over the edge for Curry. Granted, I mean Curry's made 6, so it's not like he's a slouch by any means. Has it been? Yeah, because he's 4-2 in the finals. So you know.
Apparently.
Yeah, that is true.
Some people still had COVID in 2022, so I don't know if that really counts. Just like LeBron's.
That's fair. Hey, we said they got similarities throughout both of their careers, but Ethan's hot today. By the way, you guys can feel it. You guys can feel
like
it.
destroying my brain for like the past 72 hours, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, but to answer the question, yes, I think Curry is in that final group. I think realistically, the next couple guys he can pass are probably going to be Kobe, Bird, Duncan. That's maybe like that next kind of that 6 to 8 group, maybe. And I've got Curry like 9th, 10th, kind of depending on the day. So could he get to where Duncan is? I think he would have to win another ring, which unfortunately kind of looks unlikely at this point. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I still think he's awesome, though. I still think he's awesome.
And also, just one last thing I wanted to touch on from USA Basketball. Well, kind of an offshoot of that. Is there a Rolls Royce in Kabasele's garage right now from JJ Redick and Rob Pelinka, or do you think it's in transit still?
God, I tell you, man, he was like, and the funny thing is he changed up his hairstyle from when he was in the league. Like when he was in the league, he had like just a short cut the whole time.
And now he's got the Ben Wallace.
Yeah. So I was like, man, he was fat when he was on the Celtics, but now he's like jacked. So he
shark, man. He needs a cut.
He looks like a completely different guy, honestly. So he kind of, I know it's the way he was shooting and with the wristband on and the fro. He reminded me of Denzel Washington in He Got Game, but I don't know. For some reason, it seemed like a comparison. But yeah, Yabusele, he should be getting a call to the league soon. Honestly, I guarantee you, a team brings him in for a camp deal, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that was a really interesting. That's always a really interesting thing to see. Is obviously, when we're playing in Serbia, everyone's just like, "What's Jokic going to do? What's Jokic going to do?" And that one dude hit like 6 threes or something crazy like that. The littler dude that was standing in the corner the whole time.
Yeah. And I mean, shoot, Bogdanovic really was probably their best. Well, I mean, not their best player because Jokic was making it all happen, but Bogdanovic was their like perimeter creator for most of the time.
And it's really interesting. That's why I really, really enjoy international basketball. Just seeing these guys, like just seeing Dennis Schroeder, like just take a team. To be like, hey, this is my team, and we are going to go with me. And it's like, when you see him in an NBA context, you would never think that that's a possibility. But like when he's playing with Germany, everyone's like, oh shit, that's Dennis Schroeder. Yeah. Like we got to do what he says.
Yeah, it just makes you appreciate even more how good the top guys in the NBA are. But yeah, man, fun Olympics. I felt like there was a lot of American pride this Olympic. Maybe I was really only focused on men's basketball, so let me not act like I'm talking about all sports.
I agree with you. I've seen a lot of discourse on social media about we got more medals than this country. I mean, shoot, me and Savannah are sitting here, not right now, but like we'd be sitting on the couch. We turn our heads, we see the freaking men's 10,000 meter. Which is
you're watching it.
Yeah, and we're like watching it. We're like, oh my God. Like, with 15 laps to go, we're like, oh my God, the American's going up to second. Oh my God, let's go. If you would have asked me, name 6 track events before this, I wouldn't be able to do it. But now I'm like, well, there's the 10,000, there's the 5,000, there's the 500, there's the this, there's the that, there's the relay, there's the long jump, the high jump, the pole vault, the this.
Don't forget that 4x4. U.S. women took it on.
And it's like, and seeing that stuff is just... It really does. It makes you excited. And it makes you also excited that that we're the best at something. Even though it's something like sports. And me and Savannah were talking about it. And it's like the diversity of the country just really makes it so easy. Is not the best term, but I guess for lack of a better term, so easy to be good at so many different sports. We have a big enough population, diverse enough climates. It's like. We somehow have a country where we can be really, really good at ice hockey, but also be really, really good at sports that require it to be hot as hell
Track and
outside
field,
for
yeah.
the entire year. So
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I know we got to move on, but just real quickly, the Nike basketball commercial that came out after the gold. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty awesome. The only thing I would change, there's been a lot of Melo in 2024. He was
he's a little too involved in the
somehow he's the narrator of this Nike commercial, and I get it. He was a Jordan brand guy, so it makes sense. But I don't know. I just felt like you had some heavy hitters to choose from, and you choose Melo. Feels a little like he's getting that D Wade treatment from a couple years back, finally. So, but yeah, we move on.
Yes. So, again, going into our main topic of the podcast, talking about our soccer preview for this upcoming year, we wanted to start off with the new Champions League format. I know a lot of you might have heard about it or might have looked at it a little bit, but we just wanted to make sure that the entire format was out there for your digestion, and it'll kind of affect how we discuss the Premier League. So, especially, there's change in all 3 UEFA competitions. Okay, so
I didn't know about Europa League and Conference.
Yep.
I just
so it's
only checked
Champions
the
League,
Champions
Europa League, and Conference League. There are 36 teams now in all 3, so 108 teams total in the UEFA competitions now. They all play. So, well, I guess I'll just focus on the Champions League because who else cares? They play 8 games in the league phase, so they'll play 8 games in the league phase against 2 teams from 4 seeding pots, 4 home, 4 away. So there'll be 4 teams here, 4 teams here, 4 teams here, 4 teams here. And no matter what pot you are in, you're going to play 2 teams from each of those pots. So in theory, it's like you play 2 really, really good teams, 2 pretty good teams, 2 decent teams, and 2 of the poorer teams in the competition. Kind of so it's spread out and fair, and so you're not just playing City, Bayern, Real Madrid, all those guys.
And on the reverse end, you don't end up with Copenhagen, Young Boys, and Porto, who somehow inexplicably won, the Portuguese league in your group.
Hey, Porto are good, man. Say what you want. It's hard to beat them over 2 legs, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, my bad. I forgot about. I didn't even mean to do that.
Of those 36 teams, the top 8 will qualify for the round of 16. So the top 8, boom, already on to the next round. Then 9 through 24, those next 16 teams will compete in a knockout playoff. All right? Which is 2 legs, I believe.
Yep, it is.
2 legs. All right? And then from there on, it's normal Champions League football. Round of 16 on, it's just 2-legged ties with no away goal rule still, and on from there. The Conference League, the Champions League and the Europa League are the exact same format. The Conference League is a little different. They have 6 games in 6 different seeding pots, but I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you one team that's going to be in the Conference League next year. So,
Chelsea?
Yeah.
No,
I thought they got. They were going to be in the Europa League.
Yeah, but then they got.
That's what it was.
Because United.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, Chelsea fans, this one's going to affect you. 6 games against 6 different pots. So, instead of having the 4 pots, they have 6, play 1 from each. So, my opinion as I see this is that I hate this. I just don't know who is making these decisions because I don't know who was complaining about it. I don't know who saw, United go out in the group stage, for example, last year and was like, man, if only the freaking format was better, then we would have gone through. Or whoever saw a couple years back when Villarreal got to a Champions League semifinal and was like, man, that was cool, but if we would have had a different format, that'd be awesome. And I definitely don't know who said, you know what we need? More games. We need more games in the season. I mean, obviously, we all want more stuff, like more soccer, but it's like the players have already been complaining recently, which I already have my opinion on, which I'm just like, I don't know who woke up one day and was like, hey, there's too many games. I know we played this many games forever, but this is too many games now. Okay, cool. But just looking at it, I just don't see what the benefit is and who really asked for this. I'm not gonna necessarily come out and say that like this is gonna be the worst format ever. Like initially, again, when I looked at it, I'm just like I hate it because I'm just not a big change guy. But I just don't know who wanted this, and I don't know who wanted these more games and keeping up with the different pots. And then there's going to be some sort of controversy about like, oh, how is this team in pot two if they're bad, and now we got to play. Again, people are going to bench me for saying this, but it's like, oh, Arsenal's in pot three, and they're too good to be in pot three, so what the heck? Da 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 da. Stuff like that's going to happen, and it's always going to happen. Happen in the old format, it's going to happen in this format. So I don't really see what the benefit is, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times you and I are like in sync. We almost agree too much, I feel like, and this is one of the times where we actually are on opposite ends. When you say who is this for, I feel like this is for me 100% because it guarantees the one thing that I've always said I think is the biggest, not the biggest problem with the sport, but one of the problems with the sport is because of so many, the games thing, which I don't know. I didn't play at a high enough level to really know if that many games affects you in that type of way, but personally I feel like it's just on the clubs. These guys spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year. You should be able to put together a team that you can rotate to keep everyone under a manageable amount of minutes. And like you said, there used to be 42 games in the Premier League season, or I guess before it was technically considered the Premier League. But
not really. First couple of years, the Premier League was 42 games as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was early or mid-90s when they changed it. But 42 teams or 42 games in the Premier League, and now you're down to 38. So it's like, okay, you're still reducing games somehow. And I get it, the European competitions have expanded, as the leagues have kind of gotten a little bit smaller, which kind of makes sense. But I really don't think it's that big of a deal when you're talking about, people are like, oh man, now you can play 17 games in the Champions League versus 14 before. It's like, dude, we're talking about 3 additional games, and I'm going to give you the likelihood of someone who's in the knockout, because that would be if they went into the knockout round and then made it all the way to the final. I'm going to pull a hot take and say I don't think it's going to happen that often where a team that goes into the knockout round then ends up making the final. Yes, it will happen, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's like it's going to be every single year that it'll happen. So,
but if we talk about like the top 8 teams that are like, the top 8 teams in the world, like that 9th team isn't like a team that has no chance of getting the final.
No. Definitely not. Definitely not. But at the same time, they're the 9th team for a reason, in that situation. So, and also I think the thing that I was going to get back to is this guarantees more elite matchups. Like when you talk about you're guaranteed to play 2 teams in pot 1, if you're like I'll just use Real Madrid as an example, who's probably, I would assume, is a pot 1 team. That guarantees that you're going to play 2 heavy hitters in the group rounds.
Yeah, the variety of it too kind of throws in something cool where it's not like, oh, we already beat City home and
exactly.
Group, and so now we have to play City away.
Yeah, like so many teams, that 6th group game is like, hey, what kids are available to play? And if that throws that away and makes it a little bit more interesting. Also, I just got to say, the general, like, stereotypical soccer fan just hates any change. Like, as soon as change happens, it's fundamentally like, all right, I hate this. Doesn't care. I mean, I remember in the Conference League, and look, I just shit on the Conference League.
That was ridiculous because it was like, oh, we're going to have more European competition. It's like, what are you saying? How are we going to have more European competition? It's like, you don't want
the Conference League isn't real. The Conference League isn't real. And then all of a sudden, as soon as Jose Mourinho wins one, it's like, this is the most important competition in the world, actually. Because of the diversity of teams and all this stuff, it's like, actually, it's that great.
You could have an away day in Ukraine, man. This is awesome.
I mean, God, who was the team? It was because the first 2 winners, I think it was Jose and then West Ham won it the second year when they finished like 14th. And it was like, huh. Like, I mean, my boy Don Hutchinson on ESPN FC, the worst show of all time. Don Hutchinson, for 2 years, was saying, Moyes got him European silverware for the first time ever. He has to keep his job. It's like, dude, they finished 14th last year with like probably one of the 5 or 6 highest transfer spendings of any team in Europe, over the past year or so. And continuing to do it again.
I said they definitely didn't pull back this summer.
Yeah, so we'll get on to them later. But, yeah, I love the new Champions League format. I really do. More games, more variety. And also, when you get to the later rounds, when you get to the knockout rounds, there's not as much time in between the rounds. Like I used to hate when it would be, first leg of the round of 16, mid-February, second leg,
Like 3 weeks later.
Like 3-4 weeks later. Like, I want the two teams, and obviously there's an argument like, well, it emphasizes, not just form, but who's like the actual better team. If you're talking about that space, like, to me, I just
know how I
don't
feel about that, because it's just the difference between knockout football and league,
exactly.
league stuff. Like, to me, anything with the league, of course, this is a league phase now, but it's more just like a different form of group stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, knockout is for who can reach the peak at the right time, who can perform when the lights are on. League is about
consistency.
Is about consistency, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we understand what a knockout competition, like what a cup trophy is, which is what the Champions League is. I mean, it's the most glorified version of a cup competition versus what a league campaign is. Like, we all understand that. So the people who are like, oh, what is this going to mean for the Champions League, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, shut up.
The only thing that does concern me just a little bit also is the death of the potential death of the cup competitions, but it could be a little bit more fun, the cup competitions. Like you said, that's typically where
more
the
people
kids,
playing kids.
I say that's where the kids typically get played, but also it could go like really, really left, because a lot of times when you see, especially Premier League teams entering these cup competitions, they might have like one or two youth players in there, and then mainly their backups. But with competitions like this, expanding, and for those big clubs, it could be, where it's like you have to put out squads like that sometimes in Premier League games. Like if you're playing bottom of the league at home.
As an Arsenal, I don't mean to cut you off, but as an Arsenal fan, with this quote-unquote expanded schedule and all that, if that means more minutes for a guy like an Ethan Nwaneri, or isn't that something you're going to be happy about in the long run?
Yeah, because obviously he has a great name, but beyond that, I mean, talented player, but the only thing is that gets difficult is that, like for the Europa League or the Conference League, I think that would be great for those teams that are in that competition. But like in the Champions League, you can't just like look up and be like, well, 6th game of the league stage, I'm going to start Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly. I'm going to have Reece Nelson out there. I'm going to have...
But I was more so like saying what you were talking about like guaranteeing those guys cup minutes, really, and then maybe more occasional rotation in the bottom half of the Premier League.
I don't know. I don't really have insight into the psyche of players, like even young players like that, because it's like, I don't know how much those like 5-6 games really affect them. Like if they have 6 starts in the league, or 6 starts in all comps, and they all came in the Carabao Cup, in the FA Cup, I don't know if they then look at themselves at the end of the season as 18, 19-year-olds go, you know what, this was a good season. I got 5 totals. I'm supposed to be this bright young talent for one of the biggest clubs in the country, and I got 5 starts. Man, that was awesome. Like, I just don't think that's the difference between like you having a happy youth player and a not happy youth player.
True.
But obviously, getting them more minutes is always good. And it's exciting for fans, too. Like, as a fan, you want to see the players come through your club. You really do. You want to see, for me, I want to see Ethan Nwaneri get more minutes this year. For, United fans, you love it when Garnacho scores that goal against City, because he's a guy that came through at United. If you're City, you like to see. If you're Chelsea, you love to see. If you're, I guess Phil Foden still counts, but But with the the Gallagher sale and what's going on with Trevor Chalobah, things like that. I mean, Chelsea. Well, Chelsea's built for this, man. They're built for this new format. I'll tell you that. 43 current first-team players, I think.
They're not going to be complaining about not having enough guys to rotate. That's for sure. Maybe not enough quality, but definitely not going to have a problem with the number of bodies.
Yeah. So again, I think this is going to become our shtick now. Is the Mount Rushmore? All right. So if you had to create a Mount Rushmore of the teams that you say are most likely to win the Champions League this year, I guess kind of based on the new format, but as you kind of explained, it doesn't really change it too much as far as that. Who do you think the Mount Rushmore of teams are that have the best chance of winning it?
Yeah, just real quickly, the format changed, but I'm 90% sure it's still who scores more goals than the other team. I think that's still how it goes.
Wait, they didn't change it to skill points. I heard
Nah.
there's a lot of backlash. People want to see a beautiful, free flowing football. People playing with a smile on their face.
You'll know when
still who scores the most goals, or
you'll know when they change that because Ronaldo R9 will come out of retirement to join a team. Even at his size,
Ronaldo are gonna come back and play.
But my Mount Rushmore for the Champions League, man, you're putting me on the spot. We actually didn't talk about that
All right,
one.
I'll go first. I can
I'm
go
gonna-
first if you need to.
Oh, okay.
So the four that I sent, I hate being an Arsenal fan and having this podcast because it's just opening
Damn.
me up so much. But I don't care, right now at least. So Real Madrid,
Opens you up.
Man City, yeah, no Diddy. Real Madrid, Man City, Arsenal,
Yeah.
which is already a little bit, eyebrow raising, but this one's gonna, I think, raise a lot more eyebrows. I think Atleti. I really think Atleti have a decent chance of
Okay.
winning it. I think they're
Shit.
kind of built for knockout football. The way
Yeah.
that they have guys that are just playmakers, and then there's no Simeone side that's just going to be disorganized. They started to play a little bit more attacking football starting last season,
Yeah.
but Simeone in a knockout game is never going to just be like, you know what, screw it, we're just going to fly forward and this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
I really back him in a knockout set. There's a reason why he's made 2 finals with inferior talent. Like, I'm not saying those Atletico sides were not good or not
but
great.
when you're talking about 4 or 5 best rosters on the continent, they definitely weren't in that conversation.
Correct, and they're not. They
So-
weren't. And I make this all the time, mainly as a slight at Chelsea fans, but like they weren't the second best team in the world. They just weren't. But
Yeah.
because they were so well organized, so well drilled by Simeone, and they did have talent. I think it's the same thing now. They're so well drilled, they're going to be, and
Yeah.
now they have talent again.
Yeah.
Griezmann's found new form. Alvarez is coming in, and as we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think he's going to be really good for that team, and he fits them really well. Guys like Yannick Carrasco are guys that just for some reason do stuff. When,
He's
like,
not there anymore.
Well,
He's Saudi, but I know what you mean. Like guys in that mold, like the Griezmann types are the guys that are recycled. Where it's like, hey, or like an Axel Witsel, who put up like the 3rd most minutes in the league or in the squad last year. Like they're, I gotta say, I don't think I'm gonna end up putting Atleti in my 4. But the way you made a hell of a case, like I think if you maybe expanded it to that 8, I guess we're talking about the top 8 and then the 9 through 24. I think Atleti could be a team definitely that should reach a quarter or maybe and could be in contention for a semi.
see, even them bringing in guys like Alexander Sorloth
Yes.
as attacking depth, Tommy Lamar, who we talked
Yeah.
about I think a couple of weeks ago, who's just is a guy that you can just see for a team like Atleti just scoring in a like a winner in a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Guys like Rodrigo De Paul, who have shown over the past couple of years at Argentina that he wins. He can definitely be a part
I
of a
hate
winning
that
team.
dude. He can be, but I just hate him for some reason.
I mean, yeah,
Just hate him.
that's kind of the point.
Yeah, exactly. That's how
they
you know he
have-
plays for Atleti.
When he's on the right form, they have the best goalkeeper in the world. Right now, I think it's Alisson. If Jan Oblak finds the form that he had, like 2018, 2019-ish time, I mean, there's no reason why he can't be the best goalkeeper in the world. And don't say that that's not possible, because Manuel Neuer was a corpse like 2-3 years ago. Now
Yeah.
he's back to being Manuel Neuer. So I
That's
think
true.
that Atleti side is just really, really I do not want to see them in a
Yeah.
Champions League quarterfinal. I do not
Yeah.
get an Atleti draw, and I'm like, you know what? This is going to be fun.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, we're going to kind of get onto them a bit more when we talk about La Liga, so I don't want to do the full breakdown here, but they definitely have improved talent-wise in their squad, and like you said, Simeone makes sense. I'm going to stop dancing around the question because I finally got my 4 together. My four that I think are going to be on my Mount Rushmore. I'm going to go Madrid. I'm going to go Arsenal. I'm not going to go City. I'm going to throw PSG in there.
Really?
I am. And my 4th side, I'm going to go Inter.
Inter. I knew you were
I'm gonna go
I knew you were
Inter.
gonna say
I just-
Inter.
think-
you love a little Serie A.
I
Love a little bit
do.
of Serie A, man.
I do, and I really just started watching it 2 years ago, but I can't get enough, man. I can't get enough. I started watching it right after it got off ESPN, funnily enough. So
Yeah. So,
You know.
so you guys kind of hear a little bit about our, predictions. We didn't give really anything too in depth. Just saying who we think is the teams to look out for in the competition. Got the new competition format. Now we're going to move on to our Premier League deep dive. Now this is the league that I almost exclusively watch. I'm not going to lie. I watch on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I'm on that couch over there watching 7:30 to, I think the last kickoff is at 12:30, and so until 2 o'clock or whatever it is. So I pride myself on really, really knowing the Premier League like the back of my hand, and I don't care who's playing either. It could be freaking Bournemouth, Fulham, or it could be City United, or it could be, this year, like it could be Ipswich,
Forest.
Leicester. I'm going to be watching it. So, that being said, go on.
No, I was just going to say, let's get into it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
That being said, winners.
Yeah. We just want to go straight into that?
I want to start with the winners. I'm going to start from the top of the table down.
Okay. All right. Wait, did you do a full 1 through 20?
No, God, no.
Okay.
So, just for the record,
Thank God.
We're going winners.
Yeah.
And then we're going to say who you think is going to finish in the Champions League spots, who's going to finish in the other European spots, and who's going to go down.
Yeah.
So
then we've got some categories and stuff.
Got some categories. We might sprinkle those in as we go, so we're just not talking about teams the whole time.
True.
Go on.
All right, winners. I have Arsenal. I do. I don't think. I think City. Obviously, they've won 4 in a row. Which the main reason. Look, we all know the main reason they're gonna lose is because they won the Community Shield yesterday. I didn't know that fact where it was every time they've lost the Community Shield, they've then won the league, which is hilarious. But I mean, yeah, every time in this Pep era where they've lost the Community Shield, they've won the league. I think Arsenal have strengthened, and I think City have gotten weaker. Granted, we're talking about as of now. I think Alvarez, while he wasn't a guaranteed starter every single game, is still going to be a huge loss for them. They've brought in Savio. McAtee is going to be playing, more for them. Who was the other kid? Nico O'Reilly, who literally ducked out of the way of scoring a goal in the Community Shield, which I thought was interesting. They're going to be relying on those type of guys slightly more to fill those Alvarez minutes. And I just think that makes you a worse squad. De Bruyne, over the past 2 years, has proven he is not a guy you can rely on for 40 to 50 games a season. So I think you have to have someone to fill that role. Ideally, they're probably going to say Matheus Nunes is going to be the guy who, can fill that spot, or maybe Kovacic, I guess, if you want to play him more advanced, but that doesn't fill me with excitement either. So I think City have taken a slight step down. Arsenal have taken a step up. I don't love the Calafiori signing, but I like it. I think any fan that's realistic, going into the Euros, no one at Arsenal was like, yo, we're dying to get Calafiori. You watch him in a couple games, and it makes sense how he would fit in, how he's going to provide depth. Not going to be a guaranteed starter by any means, but a guy who's going to provide depth, like we talked about in that expanded format, and wanting to go deeper into the cups. Because let's be honest, Arsenal have to win some sort of trophy this year. I think if they don't win a trophy, and I hate doing the stupid talk radio thing of this team has to win a trophy, because people were saying that going into this season, and Arsenal didn't, and I still think they had a good year last year. So, but I think to continue on the project the way it's going, winning a trophy this year is going to be very important. And while I think they're going to win the league, just getting something on the board for the Arteta era, I think, is going to be huge.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really, really like the Calafiori deal because of what you just said. It's not like we have a huge gap in our squad, and he's like, hey, we're signing Calafiori to fill that huge gap, and he's going to play 38 games in the Premier League, and he's going to start even Champions League game, this, that, and the other. It's like, does he have flaws? I haven't really watched him enough to know, but I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does have flaws. I'm sure he's not going to be well adjusted to the pace of the league when he first steps in. I'm sure he's not going to be on the level of Saliba and Gabriel. He's not going to be. He may get more starts than people think early on playing in that left back role, but still, it's like it's not going to be. We're going to be relying on him. The fee was not too high. I think it only ended up being 35 million pounds.
Yeah, real good fee.
Exactly.
Good fee.
And then getting Urian Timber back is basically like a new signing. We didn't have him at all last year.
Huge. I think that one will end up actually being more important than the Calafiori signing this year specifically.
And when you add two defenders as talented as them to what was statistically the best defense in the entire league, one of the best defenses in all of Europe. I mean, that's going to be, if we're conceding, I know this is a crazy number, but if we're conceding less than 25, 22 goals,
it's realistic.
It's going to be very, very difficult to take points off of a team, because there are going to be those games where we concede 3 against Spurs because it's a derby game. There are going to be those games where we concede 2 against Liverpool because they're really good, and we concede 3 against City. And if you have 14, like if the 14 goals are left over for those other 35 games, then it's going to be very, very hard to take off points from teams that are like that and have the attacking talent right now that Arsenal have. Also, if they get someone like Mikel Moreno in, I know I've seen a lot of people giving this potential signing flack, but again, it's just depth. Like, is he going to come in and completely revolutionize our midfield? I know that's what everyone wants the signing to be, but no, he's not. But he's going to be a good player. He can take minutes off of guys, and he can provide something different. He's not going to be like Thomas Partey, who likes to get it deep and dribble up and play these weird little curling infield balls. He's not going to be like Jorginho, who just kind of ticks it along. He's going to be somewhere kind of in the middle of that. We can progress it with his passing a little bit, arrive late in the box, maybe score a couple of goals. We saw that for Spain. So it's going to add a little something different. I mean, kind of what we can not expect, but kind of what we thought Declan Rice could be coming into this past season. If Thomas Partey was fit, we thought maybe he could be that 8 guy that is scoring goals and arriving late in the box. He did a lot more of that last year than you would think. I think he ended up with 7 goals and 6 assists or something like that. And again, like Chad said, I just don't think City have strengthened enough. Now, I know I'm going to eat my words here in about 2 weeks when they sign 2 of the best players in the whole world. They're going to sign Vinny and Mbappe on loan, but I
won't be doing the podcast anymore if that happens.
I really feel that Kai Havertz is going to take a step up as well in that center forward spot. Again, I think I said this in our first pod, but I got bad news for the Havertz haters. He's going to score at least 12 goals in the league next year, probably closer to 15, 16. And is he a cultured finisher? Hell no. But he gets into such good areas, and he is a decent finisher. He gets into such good areas, and he is a good player. He's going to score goals for this team. So unfortunately, I have Arsenal as my winners too. Obviously, it's very exciting times for me, but it's just so much more stressful. Part of me misses the days when we were just finishing 8th and going out in the quarterfinals of the Europa League.
Less pressure,
less pressure, man. Because now every single time we drop points against anybody, it's like
you're stressing.
It's like the end of the world. And then obviously social media hates the Arsenal fans.
Is Arteta good?
Is Arteta good enough? And I have to hear that, even though somehow some of these managers Unai Emery is going to finish 4th again with Villa, and he's going to be the best manager in the world despite spending more than Mikel.
Anybody else?
Yeah, more than anybody else.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Mikel Arteta can't get it done because he's turned a club around that's been in shambles for literally been Banter FC for 10 years, but it's his first managerial job. But that's neither here nor there. I wanted to sprinkle in some signing. We kind of been talking about some signings a little bit. I wanted to sprinkle in best signings and most disappointing signings. You went first for winners, so I'll go first for best signing.
Yeah.
So I have 3 up here that I had in mind.
Perfect.
First is Nikola Milinkovic to Forest for $12.25 million.
Wow.
The only reason that I like it is because if you're getting guys into that pedigree for that fee at that size of a club, that is really, really good business, and it's going to factor in when I talk about the relegation race. It's going to factor into that. So kind of a little tease right there. The other one you're not going to like, but I actually really like this signing. The Nicholas Füllkrug deal for $23 million. I like that deal.
27, but go on. Well, I don't know. What are you talking? Pounds. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
And then the last one,
you really are a perm guy.
To Bournemouth. All right, for £20 million as well. Yeah. I really like that one. Obviously, now Solanke gone, they might just do the Brentford thing where they just throw out attackers with no real striker. When Tony was out, they were just hey, we're just gonna throw some attackers out there. You guys gonna do some stuff.
Mbeumo, Wissa, Damsgaard
somehow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but if I had to put my finger on one, I'd probably say the Milinkovic deal.
Okay, I love that
because of the fee.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a guy.
No, he's a real player.
This was a guy a couple years ago who was legit getting linked with clubs like Spurs and clubs that were like back when Wolves were actually good, like clubs like Wolves and Spurs and that kind of stuff. He was getting linked with moves to those clubs, and now if you're a team that finished, I mean, I think they finished 17th last year, and you're getting your hands on that guy for £12 million, that's going to be a really, really important signing for maybe you not having to be in a relegation race this year. Maybe you just finish a comfortable like 13th, 14th, and not have to worry about it all year. Which there are hundreds of clubs in England that would beg for that to be their fate
100%.
every year. As much as people love to crap on, Palace or Wolves for what they do, it's like there are so many clubs that would pray to
be in that position.
A low mid-table club in the Premier League.
100%. The thing I like about that signing is I think him and Murillo are gonna form a really nice center back partnership.
Murillo's
I think.
good.
Yeah, I was gonna say Murillo last year had a hell of a year. I felt like he was kind of maybe the standout guy for them. Somehow Forest have been able to maintain some pulling power. Like even though they've constantly finished, I mean, you talked about 17th last year. They've been, I think, 15th or lower all the years they've been in the Prem. In this current era. And look, no one's sitting here saying they should have came in and been 10th because I mean the year they came up, everyone thought they were going to get relegated because half their team was like loanees from other Premier League sides. So
they brought in
I respect
25 total guys or something crazy.
Yeah, so I respect what they've done to stay in the league, but it's just crazy to me how, like you said, I mean, think about some of the signings they've made, like Sangare. Even
those same links.
Yeah,
he's getting links to big clubs across Europe, not even just England, across Europe.
I mean, swear there was a sentence where it was like Sangare's down to Juve or Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
It was like,
and
what?
then went to Forest.
Yeah, it's like what are we even talking about?
Even them simply being able to keep their hands on Morgan Gibbs White.
Yeah,
who's been a hot prospect for even going back to when he was at Swansea, on loan at Swansea. Like he was a highly touted prospect then. He's still a highly touted prospect. I think he's probably their best player right now.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Them still keeping their hands on him. I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi was about
He
to go
joined
to
for
Bayern
$4
Munich.
million. Yeah, he joined for $4 million.
He was about to sign for Bayern Munich, and then it was like, I'm going to Forest. So, that pulling power for them has been very impressive. And I think, again, a little spoiler, I think that's why they're staying up this year.
Okay.
Maybe going to have a little bit more comfort than they're used to.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I didn't even really have them. And granted, maybe this is an oversight by me. I didn't really have them in even really my relegation consideration. Like when I'm talking about like bottom 4 or 5 teams, I admit I like their squad too much. I like a lot of the guys on their squad too much. But I think they'd be comfortable lower mid table. At this point. So. I do like all your shouts though. I really like your shouts. Like you said, the Füllkrug, we disagree on that one. I just don't. I think the Füllkrug, the thing is, because we can talk about him because I had him as an honorable mention for one of my disappointing signings. Yeah. I feel like the needle that you need to thread is going to be so hard with him because he's already 31 years old. So he needs to come in and hit the ground running. And the thing is, he's going to be on such high wages. Especially being at a club like West Ham, who is known to pay, they pay big wages to people. It's going to be hard to.
London club. A lot of people forget they are a London club.
It'll be hard to shift him outside. After let's say 2 years, and then you're like, all right, let's get rid of him because it's been not good, or we just want to sign a real striker. It's going to be hard to shift him back to the Bundesliga for those last 2 years because the wages there. Aren't the same as the Premier League wages. So unless you're shifting them to Saudi's still a thing or maybe Serie A, something like that. But I think he just has to hit the ground running, and I don't know. I don't know
why I like it is just because I think their attacking talent. They're going to be creating so much. Like they got Bowen,
Kudus.
They brought in Somerville. They got Kudus. They got Paquetá. I mean, their set pieces are going to be really a bitch to defend with Füllkrug, Souček, Aguerd in the box, with
Kilman to Debo. The center backs they've signed,
and then James Ward-Prowse taking. That's going to be a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Füllkrug scored 5 goals off of
set pieces,
off of set pieces, just because Ward-Prowse has that kind of delivery, and there's going to be so much havoc in that box. There are going to be some teams that are going to look around and be like, they have 5 dudes in our box right now that are 6'3" plus. And also really good in the air, and I don't know what to do.
Füllkrug will definitely have the shithouse game where they'll beat. I'm trying to think, they'll beat Chelsea. No. It'll be like a good team. Like they'll be like Tottenham away, and it'll be because Tottenham were horrible on set pieces last year, and it'll be like 2 full Krug headers in the second half, and then it'll be like, oh, signing of the year and shit like that. Which I'm not saying you're doing that. Yeah. So it'll be like the third game, and it's like, oh, this dude just changed the whole season for him. It's like, all right, got it. I'll go ahead and name some of my best signings because one of them was actually a guy we were talking about in the Arsenal City thing, and that's Savio. I think he, to me, is the best signing. He joined for only $25 million, which obviously the red flags because of the City Football Group fee or transfer and all that. Was on loan at Girona. It was on loan at Girona, owned by Troyes. Troyes sold him to City for $25 million. When I looked on his transfer market, and granted, they're not the most accurate of all time, but his market value was $50 million there, and somehow they paid 25, so literally half. Which, it goes to show why people. It's part of the reason, the laundry list of reasons why people hate City. So, but I think he is going to be super explosive for them. I think he actually can be, and this is going to maybe sound crazy depending on how you feel about him. I think he can actually be a better version of Doku off the right. Or what Doku is on the left, I think Savio can be a better version on the right. Because I think he has more of that final ball when it comes to the shot. I think his shot is a lot better, a lot more controlled than what Doku's is right now. I think he has the ability to both beat people for speed, but also can be a technical dribbler at the same time. Can take you down the line, but also cut inside. So I think, granted, this is just what I saw from him at Girona. Obviously, it's going to be a step up in physicality and speed when you're talking about the Premier League. But when he came on against Manchester United in the Community Shield, it gave me that vibe of what I felt like when Doku was first coming on for City those first couple of times when he had signed from Rennes. So I really think Savio is going to be a good signing for them. Maybe even a guy who's like a guaranteed. And then the last thing, the key point, he's a guy who can really be equally effective off the right or the left. When he was at Girona, they had Viktor Tsiankov, who was kind of mainly stuck on the right, and then so Savio was playing off the left and was still able to contribute with goals and assists off the left for them. So I think he will eventually probably end up being a starter in their best 11, by season's end. And if you're saying you can get that guy for $25 million, for a team like City, like I think that's a huge plus. I think that'll be a great signing. So the other ones that I want to talk about just real quick, some honorable mentions. I got Lloyd Kelly joining Newcastle on a free transfer. Not sitting there saying he's the best center back in the world, but I thought he was really, really good. And he brings some depth to Newcastle. I mean, Dan Burn at 33 was still starting a lot of games for them last year. Sven Botman is
in the Champions League.
Yeah, Sven Botman out in the beginning of the season with an injury. I forget what it was, but he has an injury for a couple months. So they needed some depth on that left-hand side, and Lloyd Kelly will provide that. And getting him on a free, no, it's big wages, but that's just what you do. So I like that deal. Dean Houston, actually, funnily enough, Lloyd Kelly's replacement, Juve to Bournemouth. We talked about that one a couple weeks ago, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but just love him on the ball. I think he's going to be at a top 6 Premier League side in like 2 years. And then the last one is Mats Wiefers, the defensive midfielder from
Brighton.
Yeah, from Feyenoord going to Brighton. We'll talk about Brighton, in some later categories, or at least I will. And I think he's going to be a huge reason why. Like last year, they didn't have that true defensive midfielder identity, to replace what Caicedo was doing. Right, they brought in Mo Dahoud and James Milner to kind of play in the midfield for them. Their best midfielders were Billy Gilmore, who put up was top 5 in minutes in the squad, and then Baleba, who I thought was just fantastic in the second half of last season. But if you can put those two with a holding midfielder like Wiefers, who actually can still progress the ball, but just from a deeper position, and still gives you all that defensive action, gives you the defensive actions. I think that can be a really good, solid midfield 3 for Brighton this year.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to kind of go against Brighton.
Exactly. Their track record.
As a signing club, it's just I really have to see them. I mean, even the signs that they made that haven't been groundbreaking, like the Alexis McAllister signing or things like that. You can either see guys that you can either see they can play or can tell maybe they weren't world beaters, but they're definitely good players. I think of people like Enciso, Bonaventure, Evan Ferguson, who they brought in from Bohemians in Ireland. Like, these guys, they just constantly find, and Dingra, Matoma, they just find these guys all the time, and they always seem to work out. None of them really just come in or just like crap. Like, even though they didn't have a great season last season, they like the individual players. You can definitely tell, like, yeah, these guys can all play, and if they, find that manager, it's going to be hard. They have the youngest manager in Premier League history.
History, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's like 30.
He's something crazy like that, yeah. And so it's exciting, but at the same time, that's a lot of
risky.
pressure on such
I was gonna say it's
young
risky.
manager.
Risky for sure. What do you want to get into? Maybe kind of round out the top four. I know
Let's round out the top four. Let's go Champions League places. And I'm not gonna lie, I went pretty conservative with mine just because I really tried to think.
No one's putting Forest in the top four.
That's
like,
what I
sorry,
mean.
no one's doing
I
that.
wanted to get more interesting, but then I thought about it, and I don't know. This might even be controversial now I see it and look at it. But I just think the rest of the top four, along with Arsenal, are going to be City. I think Liverpool are still going to be in there. I do. I don't think that Arne Slot is going to come in and just like ruin the club like some people think that he's going to. And then Villa. I think Villa have signed.
Wow.
I think they have too much quality. I really do. I mean, they have a top 3 goalkeeper in the league right now in Emi Martinez. They're bringing in people like Ian Matson. They're getting. I know they lost Douglas Luiz, but they still have so much talent in that midfield and attack. I just think I think they have too much quality. And I think Unai Emery's too good of a manager for them not to finish top 4. Even if you look at further down like their depth chart, I guess you would see guys like Morgan Rogers, who came on and had like a really positive impact the back end of last season. Guys that aren't guaranteed starters like Jacob Ramsey or like Emi Buendia. Or even Yuri Tielemans, who wasn't a guaranteed starter a lot last season. Like, these are the guys that are going to be playing their rotation minutes, and they're still really good players. And so, bringing in guys like Amadou Onana, I don't love that signing, but I like it. He's a good player. I just think if you're a bigger club trying to play a certain brand, then I don't know how much he fits it, playing in more of a possession side. I think we saw for Belgium, he wasn't like great. Not the Euros, and so it was. So I'm a little bit hesitant for that, but I mean, it's still having a player like that. I think it's still going to help you for your squad in the long run, and I think they're a good team. I think they have a good manager, and I kind of rate them more than the other I guess Big Six teams that a lot of people would think would be ahead of them.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. Villa is another one of those things where we're on opposite ends, kind of. I actually think Villa is going to be the team that I actually had for most disappointing. I think they've made a lot of signings, but I'm really not convinced by the Onana. Kind of like exactly what you hit on, where I think Luiz. It's not that Luiz is necessarily a better player than he's probably better right now, but it's not by a whole lot. I just think the role that he was playing as he had to be that kind of midfield passer, that deeper creator for them, I felt like was a huge role for what they were doing last year. And right now, like, unless they're going to play more of a conventional number 10, you saw, you're talking about Jacob Ramsey, if he's able to play in that spot. Leon Bailey, I think you saw play a little bit there towards the back half of last season when he really started getting preferred to Diaby by the end of the year. I don't think Onana is going to be able to provide what Emery wants, as far as the passing, as far as the progression. He's going to be a hell of a defensive midfielder, which I think will be really good for them, because the other major concern I have for them is they had a not that good of a defense for a team that finished in the top 4. Like, they were more of a goal-scoring type of team, a team that will attack you, and that's great and all. But I still, when I'm talking about a team that is going to be in the top 4, challenging for top 4, I want some defensive solidity. So, kind of like what you're talking about, what makes Arsenal special. Right, and obviously no one's sitting here going to say, compare Villa to Arsenal, because we know who's better between those two. It's no debate. But when you're talking about getting to that elite level, I think Pau Torres had a good year last year, but I don't think he quite has the physicality yet and the reading of the game to still be at that top level of Premier League center backs, and he's probably the best one that they have right now.
I just also think that, like, if you look even at that Liverpool team from last year, like, their defensive solidity was non-existent. And
that's fair. That's
I
fair.
mean, they were playing like Alexis McAllister at the 6 and stuff like that, who's a good player, really good player.
Yeah,
but
but
he's
just
not,
isn't a 6.
He's not a 6. And I think maybe Onana's been a little bit miscategorized in people's minds as like a defensive midfielder. He's just like a all action. He's everywhere. Like
He's
I don't
more of a
think-
box to
I
box
don't think
guy.
he's this player quality wise, but he's more like an N'Golo Kante type, where he's like he's going to go press the right back, and he's going to drop in and make a tackle on the center mid, and then he's going to dribble it forward, and then he's going to get into the box every once in a while, and he's going to miss the target. Okay, so I think but I think they could construct a midfield that looks a little bit, again, not the same quality, but the same idea as that old Juve midfield that they had with Pogba, Vidal, and Pirlo, where it's like, hey, you're a Tielemans. You're not going to be expected to be a defensive midfielder, but you're going to be the deepest guy in build-up. Okay,
Yeah.
Onana and John McGinn will do your running for you. Okay, but because he's not very mobile, but he's
Right,
very
right.
good on the ball. So you're going to be the deepest guy, but you're not going to be the defensive midfielder. You can pick it up, do whatever you want with it. There are going to be games where they have Dendoncker in there as like a true sitting 6. Do I think Dendoncker is great? No, but they can construct a midfield where it's like Dendoncker, Onana doing a lot of running, and then maybe Tielemans further forward, where they're just like, we're just going to be solid today. Okay, Onana will be running his things. These two are going to be sitting in here. We need to be organized. Maybe Onana can, create a goal for us just by pressing the wrong person at the wrong time.
And he gives them that aerial presence too, that we were
Exactly.
talking about with other teams. That
And I just think that, the defensively solid, I think a lot of times when we start poking holes in teams that aren't at the level of contenders, I think Man City has just kind of screwed it for us because
we expect too much.
because it's like, oh well,
It's like if you don't have two great guys in every position, it's like, whoa, do you have depth?
I mean,
that's right.
I'm a pretty big United hater, but I mean, look at that team that they had that finished 4th a couple years ago. Like they weren't. You could poke a million holes in that team, but they still
100%.
found a way to finish top 4. I know finishing top 4 is definitely an accomplishment. I just don't think it's as difficult, maybe, as people try to make it out to be. Saying,
like you don't have to have the perfect squad to
like
do it.
if you look back, obviously Arsenal was finished 4th FC for like the beginning of my watching the sport, and it was just like we would lose to Fulham home, and then we'd lose to Sunderland away, and then we drop all these points. And in my head, I'm like, dude, we have to be like 8th, and we were still like 3rd because like if you're not a part of that top 2 that have to get like 95 points basically to win the league, then you can drop stupid points, you can drop stupid games, you can draw games that you should 100% be winning, and I think that Villa's going to be able to do that just simply based on their quality and their manager.
Okay, fair enough. I'm glad we're getting some disagreement going on this one. I'll round out my top 4. Arsenal and City, I think, are both nailed on. I think those are the only 2 teams where I'm sitting here saying, I 100%. I know I said I think City's going to take a step back, but not to the level where it'll be, 50-50 if they make top 4. Like I think them and Arsenal are locked in. They're written in pen. My other 2 teams, which are both teams that you did not mention, I actually have Tottenham, who I think is going to be finishing 3rd, and then I've got United in 4th. I really do. I think
so you thought that Villa didn't have a tight enough defense, so Spurs are going to be in there?
No, look, you're look. There is some contradiction going on. I think the thing with Spurs is because Postecoglou, like the stuff I'll fully say the reason why, or a lot of the reason why I have them in 3rd is assuming that they're going to fix or at least get slightly better at a lot of the stuff that was holding them back last season. I think defensive transition was like the number one thing where they just did not have any at all last year. And part of that kind of has to do with the way he was not constructing the midfield, but the way he was asking the midfield to play, and then also the fullbacks. Like when you have fullbacks that are inverted and then midfielders that are pressed all the way up, along the lines of your wingers and stuff, like that's just not going to be a recipe for having a good defensive transition.
Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie out there at the same time who
Yeah.
don't want to play defense under
Yeah,
circumstances.
Udogie I thought was at least okay because he had recovery pace, but Porro was just, I mean, that dude is a sieve at right back, and I say is because he's still going to be playing, like he's still going to get majority of the minutes for them because Postecoglou has shown he just wants guys that are going to create. He wants creators from the outside positions. But I think a lot of their signings are going to be really good. Solanke, I was thinking about this, and I want to throw this out at you because if I were to tell you you have to, like, let's say Arsenal or just any team, like, all right, not even talking Arsenal, but just a team, and I said you have to sign a striker this window. Here are the two guys that you can sign. They're going to be roughly the same fee. Would you rather sign Dominic Solanke or Victor Gyökeres?
Yeah, I'd rather sign Dom Solanke.
Because like Solanke is more of a guarantee in the Premier League. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to win a Golden Boot or score 20-plus goals, but he's a guy who you feel comfortable saying he's going to score 10. And look, no one's saying, $65 million and he's going to score 10. Like, no one's saying that that's a great deal, but I feel like his floor is a lot higher than a Gyökeres. And I'm just using him as an example because I think most people, like, if you just said to the public, hey, who would you rather sign? Everyone would be, Gyökeres. Shit like that. And I just think Solanke has proven it at the top level. Now, granted, he's only had really one
last year.
He's only had one good season in the Prem, which does make it a little bit concerning. But I think he's going to be a big addition for them because they just needed someone to be that really central focus. It's not even like Solanke's great.
Like Richarlison there?
No, I don't. I don't. I think he's right up there with Ndombele for some of the worst Tottenham signings of recent history.
Oh no.
I don't know. I really did not like the Richarlison signing at all. And
just
the only way
Richarlison is just, well, you know what he has? He has two positions.
None at all.
So therefore he has none.
It's left bench.
I mean, honestly, his best football would probably be played in a 4-4-2, which
split striker.
Goes insane, then it's not going to happen. Like,
right. Yeah.
If you were to, like, imagine him and Solanke in it too, like, that'd be a fucking.
That actually wouldn't be bad.
That's what I'm saying. That'd be a horrible thing to defend.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I will say, I mean, you did convince. When I first saw the fee and that Dominic Solanke was leaving, I was moving. I was like, I just don't. But then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, there's center forward issues. Obviously, he's not going to be a Kane replacement. And if people come in thinking that he's going to be a Kane replacement, then they're going to be sadly mistaken.
Right.
But I mean, he's a good Premier League striker who's going to be able to score goals because they have James Maddison and Heung-min Son. Like, he's going to.
And the part that I think is
in Derby, he's going to run to the near post and freaking
do some
match square it, and he's going to square it across, and he's going to toe it right in between David Raya's legs, and it's going to piss me off. And he's going to do that 12 times this year. Yeah. And if he does that, then I think that's a pretty good season for him.
Yeah, and I think the thing that benefits him is they have, like you said, they have guys who can create, not only Son and James Maddison, but also you're talking about Kulusevski. He can create. I think Brennan Johnson actually is an underrated creator.
Yeah, he at least creates every once in a while.
Yeah, it doesn't look the prettiest by any means, but he'll find a way to get down
off the post and it hits someone in the face.
He'll find a way to get down that right-hand side and then just somehow square a ball across that Werner will send 5 yards over the net.
Werner, actually, I like this signing now.
But that's the thing. They now have a bunch of guys who can score you goals. Like, Son can get you kind of 10 to 12. I think Brennan Johnson had like 12 last year for them in the league. So he can kind of contribute, 10 maybe, something like that. Kulusevski's going to score some goals. Werner might accidentally score 2 or 3 goals. And then if Solanke is just got one of the 5 or 6 guys who's contributing to goals, I think that takes pressure off of him. And with the supply chain that he's going to be getting, I think he can actually have a good year.
Yeah, and again, we saw that with Arsenal, not this past year, but the year before that.
2 years ago,
we didn't have like a real goal scorer, but I think we had like 5 guys hit 10.
Yeah.
Which is like, you wouldn't think of that as a typical way to challenge for a league, and obviously didn't end up winning the league. But if you're thinking about, again, top 4, how many, like I said, how many flaws you can have and still finish in the top 4. I mean, I guess I could see Spurs doing. I just don't.
It's like a mini version. I mean, I'm not going to call them the same level as City before Haaland got there, but it's like a mini version of that. Yeah. You don't have that one guy who's going to score 20, but you have, like you said, 5 guys who are going to get you 8 to 10. Yeah. So I like that.
So you also have United in there?
I do. And go ahead, just hammer me for it. I understand. But I actually had this even before they. I had this before the Community Shield, and I had this before they announced the Delict Mazraoui signings.
What's your Mazraoui thoughts? I was talking to your boy Don yesterday.
That's
Don
funny. I was
Watts.
talking to him too.
Yeah, about this, and I was like, I just don't get how United are. So Delict, I think, is a good signing. I think he's going to do well for them. But I'm like, with Mazraoui, and I'm like, how are we signing backup people or like squad depth people before we're addressing key issues? Like we were talking,
The
it's like
midfielder.
their wide talent is like either poor, attitude issues, or young.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Like
part of
you got Anthony, that's just Anthony, and then you got
even I've given up on him.
I say then you got like Sancho and Rashford, where it's like, when are you two gonna figure it out? They're acting like freaking JUCO football players or something.
I got to be honest. When I think about United, I don't even really think about Sancho at all. Like
That's
I know
what
he
I mean.
came on in the Charity Shield. Like
And then their
cute,
other wingers
but
are like Pelistri, and obviously
who was that
Garnacho.
right? Who was that right back? Yesterday?
Exactly, it's like Pelistri, Garnacho is very good and but also still very young. And then like Amad Diallo, and it's like
I
mean,
think
you're not gonna like, how many goals are Hoyland and Xerxes going to be able to score if your wide talent is just either inconsistent or young or both? Or I just don't see where they're going to be able to get goals.
I gotta be honest. I think Ahmad is actually going to be a lot better than. Not saying what you're going to give him credit for, but I think he's better than what a lot of people think. Like, is he a top level right winger? Obviously, no way in hell. I think he's going to be a guy who can contribute 15 to 20 like really good starts for them though across all competitions. Like I think the thing about him is, and I noticed it yesterday, and the reason why he's better than Anthony, he's got way more explosion. Like he has way more explosion with the ball at his feet. Can go by people at a much easier rate. Like he was going by Vardio yesterday at least 2 or 3 times, very very easily.
It was kind
So
of on fraud watch, by the way.
I mean, if it wasn't for those 2 or 3 goals that he scored in the or for City, like in the back half of last season, I would agree with you because like he got cooked multiple times yesterday, and he was at fault for the first goal in that Carabao Cup or in the FA Cup final last year.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at that fraud watch, but I think that, and I just think Garnacho is going to explode this year. Like I really do. Like I really think he could have 20 to 25 goal contributions from wide this year. Like I just think he has everything that you want
I
in a
definitely can
winger.
see that. He's not as explosive, like
Yep.
pace-wise, as a lot
Yep.
of elite-level wingers, but for some reason for him, it just doesn't matter. He gets the ball at his feet, and he's just able to create and score
Dude,
goals. I really,
and-
really like him.
And the thing I love most about him, as soon as he gets on the field, that dude is just pissed off, like in the best possible way. Like he attacks mad, he runs mad, he plays smart. And the thing I love most about him, I guess, besides the attitude, is he uses both feet more than almost any other winger, guaranteed more than any young player in the world. Like that goal he scored yesterday in the community, and I'm not just saying all this stuff because United
All
looked
this
good in the
just
Community
displaying
Shield.
These things
Yeah. But that goal he scored with his cutting on to his left and then scoring, yesterday, like that's a really good goal, and I've seen him do that multiple times. So, and I think that allows him to be versatile to play off the left or the right. So if Rashford has it going, then Garnacho's out on the right. If Rashford doesn't have it going, maybe you're playing Ahmad, or maybe you're even playing, Sancho or something like that on the right, and then Garnacho can just flourish off the left. So that's really my reasoning for it. Back to the Mazraoui part, though, I actually think he makes a little bit more sense than Wan-Bissaka just because he has a more similar profile to Dalot. So when you change out that right back, you're not necessarily having to change what you're doing. Because when Wan-Bissaka was playing at right back, they had to completely change their build-up because Dalot was such an influential part down that right-hand side.
No,
So
yeah, I agree. I was more saying in the sense where it's like, you still
Yeah,
don't
signing
have
a
real-
backup
you still
instead
don't
of
have
signing
real
a starter.
left back. Like Luke Shaw, I guess, but he's never, like, him and Reece James are having a competition, so you can be injured
But-
the most. The DM spot is still like very, very shaky, and they've made signings at center forward, but that center forward spot is still not like great. I like Hoyland and Xerxes.
I don't think-
exciting, but I don't like. There's three main positions right there, and I already had my concerns about the wide talent. You seem to be more gung ho than me, but I mean that's three legitimate positions where it's like we could at least sign or at least look to sign an elite level talent at one of those, and instead we're getting a backup right back.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever going to be a realistic number 9 signing that was going to make people say, "Oh, okay, I get it now."
So either I think that's
so.
Fair.
That one I think that one I think we're kind of on the same page on. The DM spot is definitely a concern. Like they need to bring in a defensive midfielder before the end of the window.
Right.
At least someone to push Casemiro, who I think, I mean that dude. I pray in my next life to come out as a person with the irrational confidence of that dude. Like he's sitting there trying to dribble through 2 people while he's right on the top of his 18-yard box yesterday. So
well, I love it because it's like he's not even trying to do the stuff that he was ever good at.
Yeah, like, he's just trying to be a whole new player.
That's what I mean. This dude left Real Madrid. And he was like, you know what? I won 4 Champions Leagues. I can literally do whatever I want to. I'm just
going to be a deep
line
playmaker.
I'm going to walk the ball out of defense. I'm going to try and. I'm gonna not mark anyone on a set piece just because I don't have to. Stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. So they need someone to kind of replace him, basically. I think a signing that they could have made, or that they still can make, because it looked like he was going to Milan, but now all of a sudden not really sure, is Yusuf Fofana. Like, I'm not saying they need to sign they don't need to spend $80 million on a lights out, a João Neves type, or even a Frankie de Jong, who I don't even think is the right profile for what they need. But they just need a guy who can destroy, in front of the back four, who can keep some solidity. As far as the left back concerns, I agree with you. Malacia, him and Wesley Fofana are competing to see who's actually real and who isn't, because no one's sure with either one of those guys. Luke Shaw, he's going to... Yeah, that makes sense. Luke Shaw is going to have his fitness concerns, but I think the De Ligt signing, what makes it great is now you have the opportunity to play Lissandro at left back like he was in the Community Shield, and you don't have to play Johnny Evans. That's the biggest thing. Johnny Evans...
That's what their season's going to be around is how can we not play Johnny Evans?
Yeah, that'll be the key to their season. How few minutes... If Johnny Evans plays more than 1,000 minutes, then they're not going to finish 4th. They're going to finish 7th. But I really like it. I think in the back four they have a little bit more depth this year than what they had last year for sure. And then attacking wise, like you said, I just believe in their guy. And a guy who we haven't even mentioned is Mason Mount. And I'm not sitting here saying Mason Mount's going to be a great signing or is going to even be a good signing, but I think he can play a role for them. He's going to still, when he's fit, which I think he's going to be this year, or I hope he's going to be this year, he can still press the ball at a high level. He can still bring a lot of energy. He can actually still create from wide positions and centrally. So I like what he can bring to them in spurts, and he's not going to be counted on, hopefully, as a guy who's supposed to put up 4,000 minutes for them.
Fair.
So,
and, of course, Bruno is going to be really, really good like he always is. But, I don't know. To me, for United, it seems like a lot of what-ifs and a lot of he doesn't have to be X. And it just seems like excuses, I guess, is a bad word, but it's this guy doesn't have to be great, but he's going to be good. This dude doesn't have to be amazing, but he can be this. This dude maybe isn't going to be. Maybe he wasn't amazing last year, but he could be this year. And I mean, if all their players were at their full potential, their team would be freaking outrageous. If you think of it like Casemiro, Jadon Sancho was the best young winger in the Bundesliga when he signed for. Maybe the best young winger in the whole world when he signed for United.
Probably.
Marcus Rashford is probably the most talented player that they have, but he just hasn't been able to put it together in recent years. Again, Garnacho, like you said, I really like him, but a lot of it is what if
he's 20. Yeah, I was gonna say he's 20.
And again, I'm not criticizing him.
Yeah, no.
A big part of their season relies on him being their best attacker.
Right.
So
right. Exactly.
It's just to me with United, it seems like a lot of what ifs that we haven't seen concrete evidence of. That it just makes it hard for me as a person trying to predict it to be like, you know what, United's going to be that team, because over just in the recent past, really ever since Fergie left, a lot of those what ifs haven't really come to fruition. What if Paul Pogba learns how to play defense? What if Edison Cavani can hit the ground running and score all these goals? What if Falcao goes on and scores the same amount of goals that he scored at Atleti? It just seemed like every single time United in the recent past has had a what if, or if this guy could reach his potential, then it really hasn't happened. And
Yeah.
Again, I'm not even really trying to hate. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I find it hard to say a team's going to finish in the top 4 based on what ifs and potential, especially when it's a club like United, who have not really shown that in the recent future. But I'd be excited if they are, because I kind of feel bad for United at this point.
Damn.
So I really hope they end up. So my top 4 were Arsenal, City, Liverpool, and Villa. Chad's were Arsenal, City, United, and Spurs. Spurs in third for him, but
Yeah.
I'd probably have mine in order too, where it's Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Villa. Let's go into a disappointing signing right now.
Perfect.
We'll do that before we do our European places. So for me, my disappointing signing, I had 2. One of them we already talked about before we started recording was Odysseus Vlachodimos, Forest goalkeeper to Newcastle. If you've never heard of this guy, by the way,
There's a reason.
he played 5 games for Forest last year. Greek goalkeeper who played for Benfica. So again, if you have heard of him, it's probably those Benfica days when he was playing Champions League football. He's 30 years old now. 20 million.
Yeah.
20 million.
Yeah.
And they still have Nick Pope,
Yeah. Yes, they do.
who is back from injury. And actually, I was reading today that he was fit for the Euros. He just didn't get picked. So it's not like, oh, well, Nick Pope's going to be out for the first 6 months of the season, so we need a legitimate starter because Martin DeBruyne is a sieve. It's not even like a thing like that. Like, they just legitimately went out and bought a 20 million pound goalkeeper from within the league.
Yeah.
While they still have a starting quality
Yeah.
goalkeeper.
No, I mean, let's just call it what it is. The Vlachodimos deal was what had to happen for Elliot Anderson to get sold for $40 million to Forest. Like, that was I don't know if it was like, I would love, like, a couple years from now, I would love a documentary on the 4-week window in June where people were just like saying, hey, you sign this guy and we'll sign this guy. Both of them are inflated fees,
What's that
but
guy's
we'll
name?
both collect
Kelly
the cash.
Perryman?
Yeah, Kelly. Yeah, exactly. A dude who no one's ever heard of. No one's ever heard of this guy, and it's like, oh, here's $25 million. Which, to be fair, for Chelsea, that's not uncommon. So maybe they won't even be included.
They're
But
the kings of the bargain transfer this summer. It's like it was like, oh, or Chelsea looking to bring in this guy for $7 million. I'm like, who?
this guy
This guy
shouldn't be
born in
worth $70.
2007. Yeah.
This guy who's not worth $70, bring it in for $7 million. But
So I say Vlachodimos.
yep,
That's always how I've heard his name pronounced. So I don't know.
yeah,
But
I think that's right.
20 million. Just doesn't make any sense to me. I just and it's just part of a money laundering scheme. And the
Yeah.
second one I think is going to raise your eyebrows a little bit when I say the name. I think Amari Hutchinson for 20 million to
Ipswich. Yeah,
I think this is one
a lot of
where
pressure.
It's just going to be. I think very well he could be a good player. I mean, obviously he came through a really, really good academy. Had a really good upbringing in North London. Went to Chelsea for minutes, which
Yeah, didn't
Okay.
make any sense.
went to Chelsea for minutes, and now he went on loan and was really good for Ipswich last year. I just don't think he's going to have the desired impact. I think he'll probably be a young player where you'll watch most weeks and he'll get marked out of the game, and other weeks you'll see him do some talented stuff that won't necessarily end in goals and assists. I think if we're talking about like what would make a good season, if he got 10 goal involvements in this year, that would be
for
like
sure.
an outrageous season. Like for him, I'm thinking like 2 goals, 3 assists type of season is probably what he's going to have. And for 20 million, when you're trying to stay up, I just don't think that's a good use of 20 million. The only reason I think it maybe could be is if you were very upfront with him as a club, being like, look, we're going down.
Yeah,
We're going
yeah,
down.
exactly.
Okay, so
We're just going to
do
play the
everything
shit
in our-
out of you.
I say we're going to do everything in our power to stay up, of course, but you're going to get tons of Premier League minutes.
Yep.
You're probably going to go down, and what our goal is to be in the Premier League in 2026.
Yeah.
If they've signed him under that pretense, like to be a legitimate Premier League side in 2026,
Yeah.
and I like it for the future, but for what it's going to be right now, using 20 million on like a 20-year-old winger, I just, as a side coming up, back-to-back promotions, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
A side that was
Exactly.
playing in League One in 2023 is now going to play Premier League football. I just don't think it's a very, very good signing. Again, going on to our relegation sides, we're going to kind of talk about. I'm going to have a little piece about what it takes to stay up, and having mercurial wingers is not one of those things. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that I don't like the player, and I
Yeah,
understand from the
the
club.
situation is just so tough. Like, I mean, how? Just think about it in general. Like, how many of these times, because it happens almost every time. Like, team comes up, they'll sign a young winger, usually from a big club who hasn't really gotten minutes.
I think the most recent one that's worked out, honestly, is Morgan Gibbs White.
Gibbs White, yeah, exactly.
Like, he
So
was good enough to keep them up, but I mean, even he was a little bit older. I think he was like 21 or 22
yeah.
when he made that move, and he at least had some experience in the Premier League. Like, he had played for Wolves a little bit, not like a super crazy amount, but he at least had Premier League minutes under his belt. And Mari Hutchinson I feel bad for him, but he's going to come in with pressure on him, and I don't think he's going to be able to deliver. Not because he's not a good player, just because he's too young and inexperienced.
It reminds me slightly of the Cameron Archer signing from Sheffield United last year. Now, granted, different positions, but first season in the Premier League, and they're like, all right, we got no chance in hell of staying up, but here, at least try for us.
Villa striker.
Yeah, exactly. We'll sign the youngest striker you have for just $20 million, and it's like, all right, that's not going to put him in a good position. I actually don't mind some of the business that they've done though. The Liam Delap deal for $17 million, I think, is another. It's kind of that same family of the Hutchinson, the Cameron Archer, stuff like that. A younger guy coming from City. The difference is you've seen a lot of guys from the City Academy leave and actually contribute a lot. True. Like, I mean, obviously the highest level of that would be Cole Palmer, who was slightly more developed than what Delap is going to be this year. But even if you're talking about Lavia, Issa Kabore last year when he was on loan at Luton, I thought was fine for them. Like, there's a long list of City youth academy guys that go on to then actually make impacts at Premier League clubs. So if Liam Delap could actually hit for them a little bit, and then Hutchinson, like you said, plays out of his ass, then maybe, but most likely no. Most likely not a chance. I'll just hit on my disappointing signings real quickly because we kind of talked about a couple of them. My number one, I actually have Onana because of the profile and because of the expectations. Like, he's like the signing that's like kind of, I'm not going to say expected to keep him in the Champions League, but like he's the big signing of this, revolutionary window that they've had, quote unquote, and all that stuff. So I also didn't like the Füllkrug signing. We talked about that one, kind of just how hard it is for that one to kind of go right, I feel like. So one other one, it kind of actually goes along with what you were talking about with Hutchinson. I don't mind the player, but I just think the position that he's going to be put in is tough, and that'd be Smith Rowe to Fulham. The only reason why I hold out some hope for it is because he's talented. Like, you can't score 10 goals in the Premier League at the age that he did and be like, oh, well, this guy doesn't have any talent. The thing I worry about is he just really hasn't played a lot in 2 years, and now all of a sudden Fulham are going to be counting on him to be like one of their main guys. Like, he's going to be the main man for them pretty much on the right, unless Willian finds another patch of form for whatever reason. So he's going to be a guy who's going to have to create and score goals for them all season long, and I just think that's a tough ask of him for someone who hasn't played a lot over the last 2 years. So that's my worry with Smith Rowe.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have a soft spot for Smith Rowe.
Right. Every Arsenal fan loves him, I got to say.
But the Arsenal fans that are saying we shouldn't have sold him or I wish we could have kept him around are just pretty naive, honestly. Because since that season where he scored 10 in the league, he really hasn't done anything.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything.
Not anything as in like he's been bad. Like, he literally hasn't done anything. He hasn't been playing.
Yeah. As the side's gotten better, his minutes have just continued to go down and down.
And I just don't think he's at the level. Of course, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be good for Forest. And I understand those concerns of being
Fulham.
like, hey, Fulham.
Yeah.
I have Forest on my mind.
Yeah,
Fulham. Obviously, even the ex-Arsenal player that's there, Alex Iwobi. People see him play for Fulham now, and it's like, yeah, he's a good player for this level.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought he was fine for Everton too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's not saying that he's going to be bad for Fulham, but like I think Morchad's saying that it's hard to go from being a squad rotation guy for about 2.5 years to being like, hey, you're going to start week in, week out, and we expect you to get goals and assists, and you're going to be one of our main guys to do that. It's going to be very, very difficult to make that jump. Do I think he's talented enough? Yes. I just think it might not happen this season. It might be a thing where, like, this season he gets, pretty moderate goal and assist returns, like maybe like 8-ish goal involvements, and it's kind of like, oh man, it's kind of a disappointing signing. And then next year, he really, once he's back into the flow and he's used to being one of the main guys, first names on the team sheet, then he could be like, all right, now this is my year to get 8 and 8, which as a mid-table winger is very, very good return for someone like that.
100%.
Yeah. So now I wanted to get on to relegation. I wanted to get on to relegation. And I wanted
you want to do that before we do the other top or the rest of the European, or it's your call. I just didn't know what order. Okay, I'm with it. All right.
So relegation. I just wanted to say very quickly what you need to do to you need to do.
I was actually fascinated to hear this when you teased it.
Number one, you can't concede. If you're conceding a shit ton of goals, you're not going to stay up.
Yeah.
I actually did the research, crunched the numbers. 13 of the last 15 relegated side were in the bottom 5 of goals against. Which obviously you would think, okay, the teams that are going down are going to concede the most. But that's not always true. All right? Or at least the worst teams are going to concede the most. That's not always true. If you think way back, clubs like Burnley, clubs like the old West Ham, were the clubs that were like, they're not going to concede a bunch. And so that's how they're going to stay up. Okay?
Yeah.
2, you got to win at home. I know that's not really a thing you can quantify, but you got to get your points at home.
Yeah.
I think that's what did Luton over this past year. They were having wins turned into draws over and over again at home. Like, they would play like really good. I mean, shoot, against Arsenal, they were up 3-1 or something like that at home, and they ended up losing 4-3. It's like, those are the games. Obviously, I'm not saying you're going to go down because you can't beat Arsenal at home.
Yeah. But just that in general.
Those draws into wins or losses into draws is at home, especially. I mean, you're going to get pumped 6-0 away at City. You're going to probably get pumped 6-0 away at Arsenal. You're going to lose 4-0 to United because they're feeling it that day. Like, that stuff is going to happen. But when you're playing at home, that is where you have to get your points. You should probably be getting like 70% of your points at home.
Yeah.
And so, if you say 35 points is probably what you need to stay up, you need to be getting like 25 points at home.
Yeah.
And then lastly, you need to be pragmatic. This dude Company last year was like, we're playing our football, we're doing our thing, da-da-da-da.
You're going down.
Cool. Have fun.
Yeah.
But then the last 2 months of the season, they started being that pragmatic 4-4-2, and they
had a
putting up
chance.
points, and they had a chance. And so it's like the clubs that realized that the earliest, that realized we're probably going to score 1.5 goals a game, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to make sure we keep the ball out of our own net, and if we can do that, score on set pieces and not concede on set pieces. Very simple things like that you learn in like youth soccer. Okay, don't we joke all the time about our old high school coach.
First 10, last 10.
Conceding in the first 3 minutes of the game, you're going to lose. If you're playing away at Man City and you concede 3 minutes in, you're going to lose. I'm sorry.
100%.
If you're playing this great rugged defensive game and then you freaking concede on a corner, that is how you go down. Like that kind of stuff. Like the pragmatic, simple stuff, I think is what allows these teams to go down. That being said, I think the 3 teams that are going to go down because of that are Ipswich, Southampton, who both came up this year.
Yep.
I think this is their year, man. They've been fighting against it for too long. I think Everton's going down. I really do.
Man. Oh, shit. That's crazy.
I can't see
That's
a
crazy.
side going down, but it's just like I look at their squad and I'm just like, I don't like it. like Pickford in goal obviously is going to be good. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a better squad than last year, to be honest.
Well,
and I'm not saying that squad was good, but when you look at their points deduction, they could have finished like 12th, 11th last year.
Yeah. So it's just like I just think that a lot of times that they had very weird results, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does.
They beat City? Am I going insane?
I don't.
feel like they did somebody either like actually it might have been United, but they just like beat them like 4-2 away or something crazy.
That wasn't as difficult. That wasn't weird last year.
It was Spurs. That's who it was.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Spurs.
Yes.
And it was just like I like their players, but it's just hard when you're living on the edge of relegation for so long. Eventually, you go down. And I know they brought in talented players, but like even their forwards are awful.
Their front line is bad. Their front line is really bad.
Calvert-Lewin's awful. Beto's awful. Chermiti is awful. Who I know is young, but he's awful. Like their center, really the only positions I feel good about them is goalkeeper and center back. Like Abdoulaye Doucouré, I don't think has been particularly great James Garner may take a step up, but I mean, I just don't think any of their players are like save them from relegation good. And
I actually think their midfield is fine. Like, I think their midfield is Premier League level, which I'm not saying that's exciting to be about, but I think it's a Premier League midfield.
I think he added like something so different.
I got to be honest. I felt like Everton looked the best last year when he wasn't actually starting games for them. Like the 10 to 12 games that he didn't start, maybe was probably when I thought Everton in the midfield looked the most secure.
Like, going back to that pragmatic thing, like it's like, it depends on what Everton are going to do. If Everton are like, hey, like you said,
let's get expansive.
We should have finished 11th last year or whatever, like based on points deductions. It's like so now we're going to play a midfield of like Garner, Decore, and Gay, which like Garner and Decore are kind of more.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I can just see that happening, and I think they're going to be in trouble, especially if January comes around. They have to sell Jared Branthwaite. I mean, they already had the points deduction. I doubt that they're good financially based on the financial decisions they've made in the past 5 years. And so, if it comes down to it, and they have to sell a player, or they have to, or again, not scoring enough goals. Of course, keeping the ball out of your own net is good, but like when your primary creator is Dwight McNeil,
Jack Harrison, maybe.
Harrison, I like Jack Harrison. He's decent, but
and I like him as like a third guy on like a mid, not as your main creator.
Correct, and it's just like again, poking holes in relegation teams is very, very easy.
Absolutely,
but it's just I really think Forest are going to stay up. I think Brentford are not going to be in the same situation as they were last year. I just think Everton was kind of the odd man out. I don't think it's going to be far away. I think they'll probably get relegated by like within one game, as in like 3 points. I think Southampton and Ipswich are doomed, but you know, other than like, I just think Everton. I think this is just their time to go down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I was right there with you on the Southampton and Ipswich thing. I think when you were talking about the things that make a team go, or the characteristics of a team that stay up versus go down, I think the one maybe slightly saving grace for Ipswich is they weren't necessarily a super attacking side in the championship.
Right.
They were more of a counter-attacking, counter-pressing type of team anyway. So if they can, take that and maybe be slightly even more pragmatic than that, it gives them at least the profile of a team that could stay up. But talent-wise, you talked about 2 straight promotions. I just don't think they're there talent-wise. They've signed a couple of nice pieces, but we're talking about teams that have spent 2, 3, 4. I mean, look at like just a team that they'll be competing against for relegation, like Forest. Forest have spent like $300 million in their club the past 2-3 years. Like seriously,
yeah, I know.
and it's like you're not going to be able to compete with that team. Like I'm sorry. Now watch Ipswich probably take 6 points off of them home and away this year, but
I love that.
but for me, I got the third relegation team. I kind of did some. I didn't quite do the numbers research that you were doing. I actually loved that. Actually, I really did. But I've noticed a couple years it's like 2 teams that everyone can kind of see going down, and then a lot of years there's maybe like one team that kind of comes out of left field and ends up going down.
That was kind of my Everton shout because of what you were saying. Like it was like everyone kind of agreed like they're good. Like especially by like March of last year, it was like they're good. They're going to stay up. Da da da. So who's your example of that this year?
This might actually be a shocker, but I have Wolves going down.
Not a shocker because I considered them as well.
Yeah. I think the loss of Kilman, I think is a bigger loss than Neto, just because he's more consistent, he plays more, and as you talked about, it's more important to not concede versus scoring more.
Right.
But also, like you look at the guys that they've brought in, nobody that they've brought in is I have any faith in hell of contributing. Like nobody. Like seriously, I'm gonna list off the guys that they've signed. Tell me which one of these you think is going to be. Or that you even have an opinion on, honestly. Rodrigo Gomes, Pedro Lima, Tommy Doyle.
Oh, Tommy Doyle's decent, but he's not going to keep you up.
Jorgen Strand Larsen.
I did see that. They signed him for kind of a lot of money, didn't they?
I signed him on a loan, $3 million loan, but it might be like with an obligation to buy or something. I have no idea. But yeah, like that. Those are the guys,
and that's kind of what their recent history has been. Like before, it was like progressive signings of young Portuguese players, frankly.
And the thing with them is real quick, and then I'll let you go on with them. they outperformed their XG like crazy last year,
Yes,
both for and against. Like they were one of the most overperforming teams of any team. And honestly, I'll be honest. Van Straten was the first one to kind of put me onto this. That's kind of been a theme of Gary O'Neill's sides. Like when he was at Bournemouth, they were the exact same way. This year at Wolves, they're the exact same way. Like
He's the finishing guru, man.
yeah, exactly. Like Hwang Hee Chan scored like 12, I think, from like 6.5 expected. Like it was like Cunha had like 12 from like 7.5 expected. So I'm
It's
like,
outrageous because I feel like I saw him miss a sitter every single time I watched him.
yeah. I was gonna say, so the goals he did score were all
like
the ones that had no
0.6.
chance. Yeah, exactly. So I can't see either one of them repeating the seasons that they had this past year, and I think their defense is going to be significantly worse. I like Jose Sa has been a really good Premier League keeper the 4 years I think he's been there.
Definitely has a howler in him, though.
Yeah, has a howler in him, and at the same time, I don't think he can single-handedly keep them up either. So I think of all those factors going into it. Obviously, you lose Neto now for $60 million, which kind of loses your, the one match winner that you had, in the 10 games that he's going to play this season. So that kind of throws out that wild card as well. So I just don't. I got him relegated.
We're doing this prediction on August 11th.
Yes,
So
yes,
there's
very good.
There's still 3 weeks left, and so this whole thing could flip upside
Probably
down.
should have said that at the top of the thing, but hey,
This whole
good,
thing
glad
could
we
flip
got it
upside
in.
down if, like,
Pause.
If Wolves like go out there and they sign like a really good winger and a good center back replacement for cheap, something like that. Maybe something from on the continent or from Portugal, and all
Probably
this stuff
Portugal.
all this stuff that we're saying.
Or no, actually, sorry, the guy, that was another reason. The guy who they're linked with to bring in as a Neto replacement is Carlos Forbes, who was like a rotation guy at Ajax last year in his first year in a major league, or like in a top league. So that's the George Mendes connection. Like he's a Mendes guy, so that's the reason for the signing. But it's just when you're replacing known quantities with unknown guys, kind of like what you were talking about with the Tottenham Manchester United thing about top four, but to even more of an extent. Like you're replacing your best players with guys who you literally have no idea at all, who weren't even playing in good leagues.
So going down, me and Chad both had Ipswich and Southampton, yeah?
Yep.
And then Everton, I had Everton going down. Chad has Wolves. So I guess Leicester we're feeling pretty good about. And again, I don't really know why. I
don't either.
I just think that Leicester are not going to be one of the 3 worst teams, which, again, I don't really have much data or talking points to back that up. I just don't feel like they're going to be one of the 3 worst sides.
I like some of their wingers. Fatawa, who I saw last year play a couple times in the championship, I think is good. But outside of that, the one thing that does concern me about, there are a lot of things, but the major concern with them is they have no pace in the back with their center backs. They've got like Cody, Vestergaard. I don't even know. They have someone else, but I just don't think they're going to have any pace. But yeah, like you said, it's not going to take much to be 17th.
Yeah, I'm going to do your favorite thing now and hold the mic.
Okay.
So other European places, okay?
Yeah.
So obviously Chad in his top 4 had Arsenal, City, along with United and Spurs. And so I had Arsenal, City, and then Liverpool and Villa. So to join those teams in Europe, there are 3 European places, no?
Yes.
Left over?
Yes.
Okay, just
At
making
least
sure.
from what my understanding is.
Okay.
I think it's like technically, like right now it's 2, but then if
It's
the
like the
team
cup
that wins
winner.
the FA
Yeah.
Cup is not the same as one of the top 6 teams, then they get that 7th spot.
So I am actually going to put these in order. I think Spurs are actually going to finish 5th.
Okay.
And I think United are going to finish 6th. And I think Chelsea are going to finish 7th again. And that leads me a little bit more into my biggest disappointment. And this one needs the qualifier on it. Again, it's biggest disappointment. It's not the player I think is shitty. It's not the player that I hate. It's not whatever. Biggest
It is, but
disappointment.
go ahead.
I went for a player. Okay.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be Cole Palmer. Because I think if you're expecting him to do what he did last year, I just don't think that's realistic. Again, biggest disappointment. I'm not saying that he's going to score 3 goals and he's going to suck and he's going to be out of the England team. Not that. But I don't think he's going to be in a golden boot race this year. I think for him, it'd probably be more like
15 to 20 goal
I
contributions.
say. Well, I was going to say more like 12 goals, 10 assists type of season for him, which again
Is
for a
awesome
player that's
still.
22 is still a really good season. I mean, disappointment in terms of what we maybe expect from him now after last season, where he had upwards of 30 goal contributions just in the league.
Yeah.
But I think Cole Palmer, could maybe go back to his normal form. That could, again, come back to the norm. But, he's not going to be outrageously good. He's not going to be bad. He's just going to be a good young Premier League player.
Yeah, and I'll say also, just because I have Chelsea in 7th as well, so we're kind of right there on that. And I think Palmer will take a slight step back. But I think the thing is, Chelsea, if you're Chelsea really long term, that's probably what you want. You want to see Nkunku is contributing to some goals. Neto, now that you signed him, you would hope he's going to contribute to some goals. Mudryk, God forbid, maybe even contribute to a goal or two. Drewsby Hall is more of that advanced type of midfielder, so if he gets minutes, which I think that signing is shaky at best, but if he plays, he's going to, be contributing
That's
to
why they had
goals
to
and assists.
sell Gallagher so they can get those Drewsbury Hall
Yeah,
minutes in.
like that. To me, when you look at those two, you know which one is a better player, and it damn sure ain't Drewsby Hall. But I don't know. That doesn't make sense. No, it's not. He's not. But yeah. So I think I agree with you on Chelsea, and I agree with you on Palmer. Maybe not even taking a step back as a player, but the numbers being slightly less this upcoming season. I'll reveal my 5th and 6th. I actually have Liverpool in 5th. So I think we both like Arsenal, City, Tottenham, United, and Liverpool. Like
Top 5.
yeah, we kind of have them in top 5-ish in some general order. And then you had the one spoiler, I guess. You had Aston Villa in your top 4. I'm going to actually have Newcastle. I'm going to predict a redemption year for Newcastle, getting them in 6th, getting them in the Europa League.
Because that Blackademo signing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Lacademos will be the difference. No, I just think I talked about, the Lloyd Kelly signing. They brought in more defensive solidity. They made the Lewis Hall deal a permanent. I'll say right now, before it happens, if they get Mark Gehi, if it's like $60 million, I don't like it for the fee. But like we talk about all the time, like, yes, you pay a high fee, but at some point you have to look at, hey, you have the player now. Like, you actually have the guy on your team. So now it's like, what can he contribute?
Getting Tonali back this year?
Yes, getting Tonali back I think is going to be huge. And then a guy in the midfield also who I think is going to take a huge step up for them and is actually my biggest surprise or kind of breakout player, Lewis Miley from Newcastle. Like, I think he can contribute defensively, or he can do his part defensively, but then he's really like a final third midfielder. A lot of touches in the final third, expected assists really high for a guy who was only 17, 18 starting last year. I think he made 12 starts for them in the league, which is crazy for a midfielder at his age. I think that could be like closer to 20, 25 this year. Tonali is definitely going to be getting
17 starts in the league, 26 in all comps for him.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But yeah, so Tonali is going to be in there. He's going to be playing a role. Bruno Guimaraes is going to be playing his role. And then you're going to need a third midfielder in there. And I feel like, look, right now, Joel Linton is probably the favorite to kind of hold down that third spot. But I think Miley, by the end of the year, will more so be that guy. Like, I just think he's really good and really talented.
Yeah, me and you are both big fans of Anthony Gordon.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Not a huge fan of Miguel Almiron, but he always seems to produce.
You know what? I eventually think that Barnes is just going to take that spot on the right. Like, I think Harvey
Barnes is a freaking good player too. So.
Yeah, like they strangely have some depth now. Like in the back 4, you've got Livramento and Lewis Hall, who I both really like as young fullbacks. Like, I like both of those guys. Botman, when he comes back from injury, I thought was fantastic his first year. Last year, took a slight step down. Fabian Schär, probably you're getting towards the end where you need to start looking at replacing him. He's getting into his mid-30s at this point, but I think Newcastle are going to have a really good year.
I mean, do they have the second best striker in the league? Maybe third if you want to say Ollie Watkins, but
yeah, I would definitely put Watkins ahead of him probably, but yeah, third. I mean,
this dude Ollie Watkins I know he led the league in goals and assists last year, and that's what you need as your striker. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's like he can't do what Isak can do. First
No,
of all, he's
not
like
at all.
Huge, and Isak is like a amazing dribbler. Can also fill in on that left hand side on like
Yes. Yes.
more effectively than someone like Ollie Watkins can. Again, I'm not crapping on Ollie Watkins. Obviously, I believe in him enough to think that his team's getting Champions League football.
Right.
It's like Alexander Isak, I am just blown away every single time I see him play. That's why when the links to Arsenal were coming,
You were
I
happy.
got super excited about it, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I like Newcastle a lot this year.
Yeah. So Chad's top 7 is going to go Arsenal. This is in order, I believe. Arsenal,
Yes.
City,
Yep.
Spurs,
Yep.
United,
Yep.
and then hold on, Liverpool,
Yeah.
Villa,
No. I don't have Villa making any European
Chelsea.
football actually. No. The team we just talked about.
Newcastle, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Newcastle,
yeah,
Chelsea.
Yeah. And just as a real quick for Liverpool, I still think they're going to be good under Slot, but a lot of the games that they won last year were like last minute or like comeback type wins.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
yeah, so I think maybe a little bit more regression to the mean there. And also, until they get that Zubamendi deal or like a legitimate 6 signing, I'm just not going to be like, I'm still going to be nervous. Like, I don't think playing McAllister as your 6 or Endo as your 6 is a long term plan for success. And also, I don't really love their goal scoring threat, at the number 9 spot. So those
I think their
two.
forwards are so dangerous. Just
Yeah, they are. I mean, look,
Salah's
Salah's going to
gonna
score
hit
20. Yeah.
I think Darwin Nunez, I think he's going to hit between 12 and 15.
See, I don't.
I
I think he's actually going to regress more.
I don't
than
think so,
anything.
man. I think he's become. I mean, we saw it at the Copa America, which I know again small sample size, but it's just like
He knows what he is.
he knows what he is, and he does it. Like I don't think it's going to be a pretty 12 to 15. I don't think he's going to score like worldies. I think he's going to score
Nah.
weird goals. I think he's going to score like a freaking scorpion kick one week, and he's going to score a penalty where it hits off the bar and then hits off the defender's face and falls back to him, and he's going to tap it in. And like I just think he's going to score like kind of like what I was saying about Kai Havertz. Like is Kai Havertz a good finisher? No. Is Darwin Nunez a good finisher? No. But just the way that they do things, they're going to have 30 decent goal scoring opportunities this year, and I don't think it's ridiculous to say they're going to score 12 of those.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, if there was just a prop bet for them too, who would score more, I would definitely put my money on Havertz.
I would too, but
So,
I don't
but
think
yeah.
it's going to be far off.
Fair.
The one
Fair enough.
last thing that we had for Premier League was biggest surprise, and this is kind of a cop out, kind of along with my biggest disappointment, but I think that Palace are going to be just as good this year as they were in the back end of the last season. I do. I really like what Oliver Glasner did, and I
Yep.
know they lost
Elisa.
Michael Elise, but he just wasn't as crucial to their success as I think a lot of
Yeah.
people think that he was.
They only put up like 1,200 league minutes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They still got IU for some reason just does stuff, and they brought in Ismail Assar, so those wide areas are still going to be really, really good.
Yeah. And they've got Ronaldo at 9, so. Oh, shit. I mean, Mateta. Sorry.
They have
He plays like him.
and he's going to score goals, and
Yeah.
obviously they're not going to concede because they have Rob Holding now. They have a good team. I don't even know if he's real. I think he might be on that same vacation with.
Fofana and Malacia.
Yeah, I think he's on that. He moved to them last year, and he didn't play a minute.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, he's going to have to if Gehi leaves. That'd be the only worry. That would be my only worry about Palace repeating their success if Gehi leaves. And granted, like you said, as of right now, there's still 3 weeks left in the window, so all this stuff is like in pencil more so than pen.
Yeah, but I thought their back line of Gehi and Joachim Anderson, I think that center back partnership did really, really well last year, and I think now they have the attacking talent to kind of take pressure off. That's kind of a weird way to not concede goals, is to have attacking talent, because teams are like, well, shit, I can't throw 8 players
all the
forward
numbers
because then if we lose it, it's going to be Ismail Assar, R9, and Eberechi Eze running the other way at us. And Munoz, I really liked him last year, and he did well in the Copa America.
Yeah.
Tyrick Mitchell is a shutdown left back that I'm pretty sure hadn't kicked a ball until he played Premier League football for Crystal Palace.
That's what he looks like when he's on the ball.
That's what I mean. Sam Johnstone's a good
Premier League
for that
keeper.
level. Yeah,
Yep.
and it's just like I think that Palace are still going to be good, and until Oliver Glasner shows me otherwise, I think that he's going to be able to. I mean, the other thing about clubs like that is like they're going to go out in the third round of the FA Cup. As soon
Yeah,
as they get
so they
in,
can
they're
just
gonna-
focus on the
they're
league.
going to go out in the Carabao Cup, and they're not going to
Yeah.
care. They're going to shrug their shoulders and be like, "All right, cool." And I could see them finishing like in a Fulham type area from last year. You know, like.
Wow.
10th, 11th type of range, which
Yeah.
again isn't like it's like, well, so they're not even getting your biggest surprise isn't even getting European football. And it's like, well, yeah, since Palace has come up, they've been seen as a club that could go down any second, and I think them finishing the top half of the league is a huge accomplishment for them.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you though. I think for them to be in biggest surprise, I actually think they would have to do like better than that. Like they were 10th last year, and I know you said like. Granted, they're not a lock every single time to be like a guaranteed
But
stay
you know
up.
how that goes, though.
Yeah,
A lot of
no, you're
times
right.
You can be 15th on like April 1st and then just
Yeah.
finish 9th because all those clubs are just kind of like
Yeah, someone did that like 2 years
I think it
ago,
was
2 or
Brentford.
3. Yeah, and all of a sudden,
You're
well,
like
Brentford.
15th.
I was gonna say Brentford was the opposite, where they were like, yeah, they're in 10th, they're in 11th. I was
Just
like, holy shit, they
bastard, yeah.
finished in 16th. So that's funny. But no, I'm with you on Palace. I think for the most part, they're still going to be a good team. I think Glasner as a manager is really good. And you could obviously see the uptick in their performances once he got there. And like you said, it wasn't Elise dependent at all, really. Like, I think Gehi is just more, like, being able to keep hold of Eberechi Eze, if they're able to keep hold of Gehi this summer, like, those are two huge guys that if you're able to keep, then I couldn't see why they wouldn't repeat the same success that they had this year. So I like that a lot. My Premier League surprise, this is a team that, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, is Brighton. Kind of in that same mold as Palace. I think Brighton are going to really push hard for that 7th, 8th spot, with Chelsea and all that stuff. Maybe even, I know you talked about their the mid-table teams where they're like, all right, third round of the Carabao Cup, let's play our entire reserve side and get the hell out of the way. But I think I could see Brighton being a team where maybe they're like, shit, like, why not try and win a cup? If we can mess around and get the right draw, like, all of a sudden we're in a semifinal and we have to win one game and then we're in a cup final. So I could see Brighton doing that. Really, I just like the signings that they've made. Like, and granted, a lot of it, like you said, is like we're in that era where it's like we just default to like whatever Brighton does. We're like, oh, that must be a great signing. That must be a great signing. But I already mentioned how I like the midfield trio that Viefers, Baleba, and Billy Gilmore can form. I also think they have a lot more depth in that spot too. Like Henselwood was a guy who I really thought was nice for them
He's a
last
good
season.
player. He's a good
Played more inverted right back for them, but really is like a midfielder by trade. Like I think he is really good. Can progress the ball, can hold on to the ball as well. And another thing, like I think the biggest reason they underachieved last year is because of De Zerbi's ego. Like I think De Zerbi's a great manager or a really good manager. But I think his ego just got in the way too much, and all of a sudden they're like sitting there in 11th, right? And I think this year there's going to be more minutes for Evan Ferguson, I think, because they're going to be in a more development style, which is funny to say that I'm saying they're going to be development style, but I think they're going to do better. But more minutes for him, more Welbeck on the bench.
He's been in the league long enough to where he can.
Yeah.
He should be expected to kind of just take that
Yeah,
step.
and João Pedro, who I was nervous about as a signing, he's good. 10 to 15 goals a season, like that's going to be really good. Solly Marsh, I think him being able to be healthy is kind of a key because he's going to play more of that utility spot that Pascal Gross has been used to in the past. But obviously now he's moved on to Dortmund. So I think Solly March is going to have to be that utility guy for them when he's fit and available, which is always a knock on wood when it comes to him. So I think Brighton is, challenging for 8, challenging for 7, something like that. So
All right.
I don't think that's
So,
out of the question.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that shot. Obviously, Brighton is a team that I really enjoy watching, so I really like it if they kind of took another step up, kind of back to where they were about 2-ish years ago. So now, I mean, we've already been going for 2 hours, but
Yeah, so we have.
let's try and go like
We'll do some more rapid fire. We'll do
yeah,
some more
to go a
rapid
little
fire
bit
on the
more
other
quick.
leagues.
I think also we're going to have a lot more agreement in this section anyway.
Yep.
So we can hopefully go through it a little bit quicker. Talking about the other top 4 leagues, so obviously the top 5. Premier League, already did, again, 2 hours on that. Now going through La Liga first. Starting off with winners. All right, we'll just do these at the same time again, so hopefully we can do it a little bit quicker. Madrid, I think.
Yep.
I don't think there's going to really be challenging. I mean, bringing in Kylian Mbappe to what they had last season when it wasn't particularly close already. I think it's going to be still not particularly close. But for my biggest disappointment, it's kind of interesting. I say it Atleti, and I say that for this reason.
That's interesting you have that, but then you had him for Mount Rushmore in the Champions League, so I'm fascinated.
Because I think it's this.
Yeah.
They bring in Lenormand, Sorloth, and Alvarez, spend more than 130 million.
And Gallagher.
And Gallagher now. Again, when I wrote this,
Yeah.
he hasn't signed yet. But yeah.
Yep.
So now it's like north of 160 million.
Mm-hmm.
They need a challenge.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't think they're going to. And again, it's hard. It's kind of like what happens with City in the Premier League, where it's like, oh, well, they didn't really challenge for the league or whatever, da-da-da. It's like, I mean, it's going to be hard as hell to compete with that Real Madrid team. But at the same time, like, if they're clearly... That's why I think they're going to do so well in the Champions League.
Because they'll focus more on that.
I can see their quality, and I think maybe in, like, February, they're like, well, shit, we're already 15 points back in the league. We're going to put everything into the Champions League. We have a tie against... We got a good tie. We got, like, Benfica in the round of 16, and then... Oh, now we got Dortmund, who are not an easy draw, but it's not one of the big ones. Okay, cool.
It's not impossible.
And then, semifinal, we got Bayern Munich. We can do this. But I think that they have the quality to be one of those teams, especially in knockout competition. But I just think over the course of the season, they're not going to really be able to challenge with a club like Real Madrid. And I just think that they're too good to not challenge, but I don't think they will. Because I think Simeone's style, I think it does really, really well in knockout competition, but I don't think it always correlates to outperforming in the league. Obviously, he's won La Liga twice, so I'm not saying that he himself can't challenge for the league. I think for this season, though, I don't think they're going to be able to come close to Real Madrid, which I think they really need to if they're spending this much money.
Yeah, a real fascinating thing is, and I've been hearing, but there's a lot of buzz about Griezmann actually going to LAFC this summer, which I think would be kind of crazy. I still feel like he's at that top. I mean, look, he's not at the top of his game where he was. You always joke about that one year where he was the best player in the world for 6 months. Man. Yeah, but he's obviously not at that level. But I mean, shoot, he was like 30 goal contributions 2 years ago. So I think he's still a key piece for them. So if they're able to
have
keep
to be like the main goal scorer, like we said, Alvarez is probably going to be that now.
Sorloth even is going to get some sort of... He's going to contribute something. I mean, he was like second in La Liga in goals last season. So
I mean, shoot, if they play a 4-4-2 with Griezmann and Alvarez apparently in their strongest team, they won't lose a lot by starting games with really any combination of those three. If they start Sorloth and Alvarez, then Alvarez can be a little bit more of a pressing forward / creator. If they start Alvarez and Griezmann, then Griezmann is going to be the deeper one while Alvarez is looking to get him behind. If they start Sorloth and Griezmann's going to be a similar thing where Sorloth is getting in the box, looking to get on the ends of crosses and headers and things like that, and then Griezmann's still the creator.
It's funny to say, but I think the actual question mark for Atleti going into the season is their defense. Their back four, like the personnel specifically. You look at, a starting group that's probably going to be, as of right now, it'd be like Javi Galan with Lenormand and Jose Maria Jimenez at center back, with Nahuel Molina at right back. Like none of those. I mean, maybe one of those. Who was that?
Jimenez looked beyond
horrible
washed when he was playing for
Copa
Europa this year.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put on that Atleti top, I'm gonna always believe in him. So
so none of that back four gets you excited. So I can definitely see the cause for concern with them. My biggest disappointment. It's kind of unfair to say this, but I'm actually going to go Girona. They lost probably their two most important players, Artem Dovbek and Alex Garcia, and they replaced them with and Savio. Yeah, Savio.
Their three best players.
Yeah, like literally they lost their three best players for the most part. And, I mean, I know this dude's been kind of a meme between us, but he was good for him last year. Eric Garcia, who went back to Barcelona from loan. So
that's
like
four of their key players that they're going to
lose. Yeah, I think I saw it. Yeah, I think I saw it where they lost 5 of their top 9 guys as far as minutes for this season. So and like the only signing that they've made, or like the main signing they've made to like come back is like Oriol Romeu on loan from Barca, and it's like if you're expecting him to replace the Alex Garcia, like one, they're not even the same profile, so I don't see how that's possible. But yeah, I think Girona is just not gonna. They could honestly have like a Union Berlin type thing where Union Berlin made the Champions League 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden it was like now they're in the relegation battle. It's like what the hell is going on?
That's because they brought in Brendan Aronson.
Chill, it's because they brought in Bonucci.
Gotta be my favorite signing of the past like 5 years. That one.
Oh, easily. But moving on to the narrative, and this is something I got to give you credit. You get creative with the throwing in the additional question, the additional topic here or there. The narrative we're looking forward to the most this season in La Liga. I think that challenge for the fourth spot is going to be, and look, every year it's kind of like we know who the top three are going to be. What's the fourth going to look like? We haven't mentioned Barcelona at all. I guess we could mention them for a second. I see Atleti being probably better than them this year. Like, I think the Olmo signing was very unnecessary. We talk about it ad nauseum. They still have not figured out who the fuck to play on the left wing. Like, they went for Nico Williams for whatever reason. I guess it was because of wage demands or whatever, but they didn't end up signing him and instead went for Danny Olmo. And now it's like this eternal thing where they've been playing like Olmo or João Felix last year, like Pedri even at left wing, Gavi at left wing some, like, and they're just so narrow.
Like Ferran Torres, I guess.
Yeah, and they're just so narrow on that left hand side and can't speak today.
No threat.
There you go. Thank you so much. And then it's just going to be all like the Yamal on the right hand side and like people double and triple teaming that side.
Even
so
that, it's like, dude, like he's
17.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Just go into the season and be like, well, we have Lamine Yamal, who's going to be the best player in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
There's some people that probably think that he's going to be having like 30 goal involvements, and he's not. He's going to have like
20, 15.
If he's really good, then he'll have 20.
Yeah.
I probably expect it to be more between 10 and 15.
Yeah. But talking about that fourth spot, I think it comes down to three teams: Villarreal, Sociedad, and Atletico Bilbao. Now, Bilbao, like we talked about, they were able to keep hold of Nico Williams. They were actually able to keep hold of all of their starters. Like, I'm pretty sure their top 9 guys in minutes are all coming back this season, which is really good for a team that finished 5th and won the Copa del Rey last year. So they'll be in the Europa League, so they won't have that Champions League stress, as far as the playing all the time. And they'll still have the familiarity of their team. Sociedad, I don't think, are going to be able to compete. They lost Lenormand. They're going to lose Mikel Merino to you guys. And they lost Andre Silva, who went back to Leipzig on loan, or from his loan. So I think they're kind of out. And then Villarreal, losing Sorloth was a big miss for them. Like we talked about, he was second in the league in goals last year. And it means they're going to have to rely on Gerard Moreno again. And, of course, Nicola Pepe, who they signed on a free transfer. But Moreno, he's only put up 2,000 minutes once in the last 4 years. Like,
who has more Premier League goals in their career?
Oh,
Nicola Pepe or Pedro Neto?
I would say Pepe, probably.
Okay, go on.
Like, Pepe had 2 years where he wasn't awful. I mean, his first year especially, he wasn't horrible. Yeah. And Neto, I think, scored like 2 goals last year. So I was like, okay. But somehow he's worth 60 million, but Nicola Pepe is going on a free and is the biggest bust of all time. But yeah, so I'm going to go with Bilbao finishing up in that 4th spot, but I would not be surprised if Villarreal got it as well. They also got a French midfielder, I think Pape Gay, on a free from Marseille. Huge defensive numbers, huge progression numbers as well. I think he's going to be a good signing for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. My narrative, again, is a lot more boring, but it's just like, what even is Barcelona now?
We just talked about it for a minute. Like, what? I don't really, like, I look at their team, I don't know what part of their team, and, the midfield is probably the strongest unit, but I don't know what part of their team I'm supposed to be in love with, And even when you look at the midfield, the balance of it is not there.
And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of their players, even when we say them, would probably get a lot more credit than what they are just because they play for Barcelona.
100%.
Guys like Ter Stegen, great goalkeeper. I'm not going to take that away from him. But even he's been slipping a little bit from his form that he had a couple
2 years ago.
Yeah, and it's like Balde, it's like, good player. I'm not going to
Fine.
lose my mind over him.
Yeah.
Ronald Araujo was apparently like the greatest center back this side of the freaking Mississippi.
Yeah, he had a crazy downfall in the last 12 months.
That's what I mean. And then over the past year hasn't been good. Inigo Martinez isn't going to get me excited. Gavi, his injury woes, and Pedri's injury woes are both, going to kind of be a plot of this season. Like you said, even defensively, like Eric Garcia, Pau Kubarsi, Clement Longley. Like, it's a lot of people that you're doing a lot of this.
Yeah,
Or it's
yeah.
like, hopefully, maybe, I don't know.
And not in this way.
It's not like Jordan. But,
Yeah.
like, you're just doing I don't know, I guess. And then, like, their forward situation, even. Like, it's like Lewandowski's 36?
35, 36, something like that.
36 in a week.
Yeah. And wasn't good last year.
And then it's like, well, we'll get goals from...
I mean, they're talking about this Pau Victor, I think, guy who they signed for $3 million, which is like the classic, the classic Barca. Oh shoot! Anybody from the academy that had a cup of coffee with the first team is now all of a sudden world class.
Yeah, exactly. And
Fermin
it's like,
Lopez.
And it's like Frenkie de Jong has never shown the capacity to score goals. Ilkay Gundogan is, I guess, more of a goal-scoring midfielder, but he's getting older, and he wasn't very good last year either.
I tell you, the number of people, I agree with you so much on that. Like, the number of people who were like, oh, Gundogan was so good last year. I'm like, was he? Like, I watched a lot of Barca just because La Liga, I mean, I was keeping an eye on it for a while till we had it wrapped up. But I really didn't think he was that good last year. Contributed with goals and assists, yeah, and played a lot of minutes, but I really didn't think he was that
in the
good.
league, though. Like, if you're a goal-scoring midfielder, I should
Yeah,
expect you to at
8
least
to
be hitting
10.
10.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And like
That's
Danny
fair.
Olmo, he's got... I don't really even know what he is. We had talked on the phone, again, before we even had the podcast, when the Euros were on. It was just like, what even is Danny Olmo? Is he a winger? Is he a...
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not. He's like the same thing you talked about with Richarlison, where it's like he's not quite one position, not quite the other, and it's like you're supposed to come up with this imaginary position for him to play in, and it's like you can't do that.
And again, it'd be a different thing if Barcelona were Barcelona of like 10 years ago, where it's like, well, we're so dominant, we can just create a role for Danny Olmo and it'll work anyway. Like, that's kind of what they did for Messi. Like, they were like, we're so good, we're going to play like a 4-4-2 with him and Suarez up top, and Messi isn't going to move on defense, but he's good. But we're going to still be able to win a lot of games and win the league because obviously Messi's that good, and we're good enough so where it's just like we can defend with 10. So we're just going to shrug our shoulders, like I'm thinking about biggest disappointment now. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Barca finished like 4th.
Yeah, me either.
Which
I wouldn't
for
at all.
Barcelona is a shocking
Crisis.
finish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess maybe retroactively now, going back to my disappointments, like, I wouldn't be like shocked if Barcelona ended up finishing 3rd or 4th, which is a travesty for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on to Bundesliga. All right,
Yeah,
let's go winners.
bully.
I literally have it down here as the bully.
I know.
Winners. All right, hold on. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Bayern.
Leverkusen. I just real quickly on Bayern, and then I'll let you go. Their transfers, I just don't understand. Their transfer business, I don't get. Letting De Ligt walk, and then you replace it with Ito, and then you're so desperate to sign Jonathan Tah. Like, Tah is good, but I don't think he's this all-world. Where you should be moving mountains to get him or anything. I don't even know if he's better than De Ligt, honestly. I just think De Ligt has had more of a spotlight on him every single year. And then Ito is like, I mean, the guy is already hurt anyway, so I'm not going to sit there and kill it. But, like, he had, like, a decent 2 years at Stuttgart. Like, okay, now all of a sudden Bayern are paying 30 to 40 for those guys. And that's the thing, like, they always have fancied themselves as, like, oh, we're the smart club in the transfer window. It's like, that shit's
Don't
gone.
splash the cash.
Yeah, like that is gone. We joke about it all the time. Like, the Luca Hernandez deal was the one that solidified that era was over. But, like, even, like, you look at Paulinho, like, why are you paying 50-something million for a 29-year-old DM who, I gotta be honest, I don't think fits their team. Like, he's not on the ball. He's not, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying he can't complete a pass, but I don't feel like he brings anything in the passing game for a guy who's supposed to be playing a lot of minutes for them at central midfield.
I just think that their defensive midfield situation is very finicky right now. They're like,
Agree.
Like, it's like, do you really want to put Kimmich in there as like a lone 6? what does that mean
No.
for your back line?
Not a good enough athlete to play as a lone six.
Exactly, and it's like, as weird as it sounds, like Bayern are kind of now in a position where they're not dominating the league, where they actually do need a destroyer. Because there were times where
People are coming at them.
like 10 years ago, like there were times where they could literally play with like basically just like 3 just normal center mids. Like they play like Schweinsteiger and like Muller at the 10, and then like even Philip Lahm, where it was just like they don't even have like a real like defensive midfielder or even barely any real center mids.
I mean, think about it. They had a time where they were playing Goretzka, Thiago, and James Rodriguez in a midfield 3. Like,
and winning
there's no
the
way
league by a mile.
There's no way in hell that could work now.
But I just feel like they're gonna win.
Yeah, and look, that's not a bad feeling at all, because I went back and forth between them and Leverkusen for winners. So I'm not sitting here saying Bayern will be terrible.
I think it's so hard. I think one of the harder things is when you become an elite club that when
To continue it,
when
yeah.
teams figure you out. Like obviously, I'm not going to sit here and be like Xabi Alonso is going to play movement for movement, progression for progression, the exact same way last year as they do this year. Like he's too smart for that. But I think it's going to be very hard. Where last year you could play the exact same style every single game and still kind of caught teams out, kind of caught them by surprise. And now everyone's like, here's how Bayer Leverkusen play. Here's what they want to do. Here's how we're going to try and counteract it. And when you have to start changing things mid-season, and you're still not a very experienced coach. I mean, we've seen it with Arteta, where it's like, dang, everyone figured out what Arsenal wants to do. Now what do? Now we're dropping points around Christmas. And then your whole title race is gone. And with a team like Bayern Munich, you can't. I mean, it took an invincible season to knock them off of their crown.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Bayern
Bayern wasn't even bad the first half of the season. Like, they were actually on pace for one of their best seasons in the last decade. Yeah. But it was just that Leverkusen, like you said, were literally unbeaten for like the entire year.
And it's like, I mean, again, it's like what people say about, trying to challenge the City. It's like, well, you have to be perfect in order. Like when Liverpool won the league, they had to be perfect, and that's kind of how it was with Leverkusen. It's like they had to be perfect, and I don't think they have a good squad. There's no denying that, but I don't think their squad is like so great, and so like people like Ngampie, who are getting like huge minutes. It's like I think he's a good player, but I don't think it's like he's so undeniably good that like he's going to be great. And I don't think Grimaldo or
Frimpong,
I think they're good players, but they're not like world beaters. This is going to sound stupid and make me sound like a noob, but it's like not like they're like 89 rated on FIFA or on FC and stuff like that, where it's like these are the 2 of the best players. Like these are all the best players in the world.
And plus, it'll be hard to replicate. I mean, they both were like 15 goal contributions last year. Like to expect them to do that is hard.
Out of their skin, and even if you just look at their team, it's like who do you really look at? It's like, well, that guy's going to be the best player in the league. Or that guy's going to be the best in his position at the league. If you just go position by position, like Berdetsky isn't the best goalkeeper in the league. Florian Wirtz is probably their best player, and he's still very young. So again, kind of similar to the Cole Palmer situation. I mean,
it's possible to have a drop off. Yeah,
we kind of saw in the Euros, like Florian Wirtz was not very.
He ended up getting benched. Really,
he ended up getting benched.
He did.
It's like there's nothing wrong with getting benched for Germany as a 20-year-old, but it's just saying like you can't expect these. And most of the people we're talking about are young players. It's not impossible to just be like, hey, this dude was scoring 20 in the league last year, and now he's scoring 12. And that's the difference between you winning the league and not if you're playing against Bayern Munich. And that's why I just think Bayern have too much quality at the end of the day.
Yeah, you made a really good case. And like I said, if Bayern do end up winning the league, I'm not going to be surprised at all. Like, really all you're talking about is, like, let's say a couple of their guys who maybe had down years end up really hitting this season. Elise, for the 10 games that he's healthy, he's really good for them. Something like that. And like you said, Paulinho, they kind of do need a guy in that mold now because of just the overall style of the Bundesliga and the construction of their actual team, like how they are compared to others. The reason I think Leverkusen are going to end up winning the title is I think stability in soccer specifically is underrated. Like, I think the stability of like so many times it's, who won the transfer window? All right, that team's going to go win the league. Who just made the most recent signing on deadline day? All right, they're going to finish top 4. Like, and I'm not saying you're doing that at all, but I think there's something to be said for you're keeping the same manager, you're keeping majority of the same players. The 2 major signings that they've made Alex Garcia, I think, is going to be really good for them. Super creative midfielder. Is going to be able to challenge Ezekiel Palacios in that midfield and kind of give a different profile to Andrich and Xhaka, who obviously had a really good year, but isn't going to play can't play every single minute. And then Martin Terrier, who they signed, who's kind of like an auxiliary forward. Yeah, look, I'm not sitting here telling you he's going to be great, but like I think this could be a poor man's version of what we were talking about with Atletico, where it's like if you have Boniface, Patrick Schick, and Martin Terrier, if you're playing with two of those guys at a time, you're not hating whichever two of those that you have out there. Right. So I think he's going to bring in that depth that they need. I would like to see him make one more center back signing because I'm pretty sure they have AFCON this year, and that'll affect Tapsoba and Kusanoa. And if they lose Ta, then like they really need to sign at least one, probably two center backs for me to really feel good about it. But yeah, I still think they're in a good position. And no one like I looked at Bayern, I looked at even Dortmund, hell, I even looked at Leipzig. Like none of them have really strengthened in a way where I'm like, all right, they're going to take the title off of Leverkusen because of their talent upgrade. Now, like you said, could Leverkusen come back to reality a little bit more with some of the performances that players had? Absolutely. And if Bayern, their guys get back to reality, which for them is probably upgrading, then I could see that happening. But yeah, I've still got Leverkusen lifting the title back to back, which I think would be shocking.
Yeah. So who's your biggest disappointment?
I had Bayern's transfer business. That was my biggest disappointment, really. I didn't understand it. Elise, super talented, but like, if you're in your early, like Bayern just love having wingers with fitness issues, I think is their thing. Between Coman, seriously, Coman, Gnabry, and Sané, none of those guys are like guaranteed great bill of health. And then you throw Elise into that mix, it's very weird. So, right. I'm sure they're not signing them all because they have injury history, but it makes me wonder why the hell they haven't gone after Dembele yet. Like, what are they waiting for?
It's funny you say that because my disappointment was kind of the same thing going at your title pick, which was Bayer Leverkusen. It was like, obviously they ran away with the league and they were unbeaten last year. Yeah. I just don't really like their signings of Terrier and even Alex Garcia. Just because I looked at his numbers, Alex Garcia, and it's just like he's just a passing midfielder. He doesn't really, defend a lot. He doesn't really get into the opposition box a lot. He's not tackling a lot. He's not really getting about. It's just like he's just a ball-moving midfielder. And I think if you're going from being a really, really good team to like a consistently elite team, I think you're going to need more than just ball movers, especially when you look at the rest of their midfield. Like, are him and Granit Xhaka ever going to be able to play together? No. Yeah, especially not if you're playing in the freaking Champions League. So I just again, not disappointed in the fact that they're going to end up finishing 9th or something like that. Just when you based it off last season and then the business that they've done this year, again,
you want them to take that step up.
Yeah, especially like you said, if they lose guys like Ta and if they don't bring in replacements when AFCON comes around, like it's going to be really, really tough around that December-January period to keep picking up points when you have these sort of weird teams that are coming out or teams that are just not performing at its very peak like it did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. One other quick thing. Well, actually, I guess we're going to talk about the narrative we're looking forward to.
Yeah, hit me with yours.
Which new manager between Nuri Sahin and Vincent Kompany, like they're at the two most prolific clubs in the country. Which one of those guys is going to be able to kind of have a grip on the situation? Because I think they're both walking into difficult spots. I don't know if you've seen the reports, but Sahin is already like beefing with the CEO of Dortmund. Yeah, like they're already having complaints, and there's a chance the CEO could be out after only being in the job for 5 months. So that I think is difficult. I don't think Bayern are in a place of stability right now at all. Hence why Kompany was actually named the manager. So we've seen the Bundesliga as a nice training ground for managers. Obviously Klopp started there and Nagelsmann. We were talking about Glasner as well, like some guys who really developed, Ralph Rangnick, like guys who really developed in the bully, but that was on the lower level teams at first. Like
not the top.
Yeah, as I say, getting thrown straight to the Sharks as your first like major job for Shaheen, I mean, he's only managed, I think, in Turkey.
Yeah.
And then Company, like, no
Went
offense,
down.
but I was going to say, I'm not going to consider Burnley as like a big job. Certainly not on the same level as Bayern. So if either one of those guys are able to really bed in well and actually be adapted or become an adaptable manager, because I think Dortmund still have a lot of talent. Like, I like a lot of the signings Dortmund have made. Valdemar Anton is a good signing. Pascal Gross brings some defensive or brings some midfield utility to them that I think is much needed. But and I'm going to say this now, Jamie Bino Gittins. I know we're not doing it for every league, but that's my breakout player for the Bully. Like, I think he's going to be really good for them on that left-hand side. Has been amazing in
I
preseason.
mean, their pace on the break is like outrageous.
Him, Adeyemi, I mean, all of those guys. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I'm looking forward to. What do you got?
I think you'll
What do you
like
got?
this one.
Okay.
Harry Kane.
Hmm.
Is he still world class, or is he now Euros Harry Kane? Me and Chad joked all the time during the Euros about how, like, these English media outlets would come out and they'd be like, "Oh, well, he has to be unfit. There has to be something wrong with him." Da da da. It's like, why? Because he sucks. Like, he was just
exactly.
not good in the Euros. There was never an injury announced. There was never an injury at the end of the Bayern season that they said that he had. It was just like, oh, well, he can't be fit because he's not good. And it's like, or he's old.
Just in a different, hitting a new stage of his career.
Which again doesn't make any sense because he just hit like 35 or whatever it was in the Bundesliga. But it's like, I don't know. Sometimes it just happens where it's just like you just,
especially with a guy who's had the injury history that he's had.
Yeah,
you know,
like sometimes your body just breaks down at 32-ish years old, and you're just not that guy anymore. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it for him personally. There's a lot of problems for it for
Bayern.
So it's just like, that's what I'm looking forward to. Like, if anything, I guess it'd be better for him if his body is just breaking down, because if not, then it's like, okay, so you just played like shit in the Euros for no real reason.
No reason, yeah. Yeah.
Like if he comes back and he scores like 30 again in the league, it's like, so why were you so awful in the Euros? Like, I don't understand that.
Fair.
Like, I was just very, very disappointed by Harry Kane in the Euros, and I just want to see, like, what's that next thing, because every time I watch Bundesliga highlights last year, they'd lose like 4-3 to like Heidenheim or something weird like that. But then Harry Kane would score a brace, and it's like, well, I don't know. Harry Kane's doing what he can. He's still a really, really good striker. But then in the Euros, he's just so bad. So I just want to see, are we at a new stage of Harry Kane's career? Even just like drop off. Like, is he going to score 18 in the league next year, which is nowhere near his peak level, or are we still going to get world class Harry Kane?
No, that's good.
Coming down the home stretch now, we got 2 more leagues, and I will
1.5.
I will openly admit to our listeners, I'm now completely out of my depth, and this is all research based. I don't watch these leagues, but this is all based on the research that I did for this pod.
Nice.
The first one, Serie A, winners. I just had to go with Inter because the gap that they had was just so insurmountable. Like, you don't just make up, like, I think it was like 25 points or something crazy like that. I don't think you just make up, or no, sorry, like,
no, I think it was
16,
like 15, 16, yeah.
15, 16. Yeah, 15, 16 points, and I don't think you just make that up in a summer. And they've actually been making pretty big signings, like the biggest signings in Serie A have been coming from them. The only other team really making big splashes, I guess, was a couple of Juve signings, but they were so far gone that I don't think those signings are the difference between them winning the league and finishing where they finished last year.
Yeah, I have Inter winning the league as well. You hit on it exactly. I think kind of like what I talked about with Leverkusen, with the cohesion that they're going to have, same manager, most of the same squad. I mean, they didn't literally, I mean, I'm looking at it now, they didn't lose anybody that was a major piece for them. I mean, Alexis Sanchez, their 4th striker, you know, it's going to be hard to replace him. But, I mean, shoot, they brought in Mehdi Taremi, you know, who I think can play a good role for them. Is going to probably need to be their 3rd attacker, just because I don't think you want to really count on Arnautovic, which Arnautovic, he goes in that same category as Vlado Chimas, where there's no way in hell that signing was real because his market value is $4 million, but yet he went for an €8 million fee as a 35-year-old striker. Even in Serie A, that's head-scratching. So,
no joke, I worked at camp last week or 2 weeks ago, and there was a kid wearing an Alexis Sanchez Marseille number 70. If
you would have just told me, hey, I saw a dude with an Alexis Sanchez kit, which team was it? Marseille would have been like, I would have named teams he never played for before I named Marseille. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, no joke.
That's
He
insane.
had that, and then he followed it up the next day with a Arturo Vidal Flamengo kit.
Jeez. I actually respect this kid now
This
at this
kid's
point.
like 7, by the way, so I don't even
Yeah.
know how these kids are even made for that age.
That's good parenting. That's what that is.
Yeah,
That's good
exactly.
parenting.
So, but I had a pretty funny biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
My biggest disappointment is actually Como.
Oh my! I love it. I love
Brought
it.
in
Varane.
Varane, Pepe Reina, Alberto Moreno, Andrea Bellotti, and an American named Nicholas Giacchini. Something like that. And they're bringing in all these guys, and I'm just like, they're just not going to be good.
Yeah. Like it reminds me of when you play that FIFA career mode and you're like, yo, I'm gonna be a horrible team with no transfer budget.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's just sign old
Freeze.
heads who
Let's
yeah,
guys on
freeze
freeze.
or old heads. And it's like, oh shoot, what happened?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, back in the day, it was like, the classic was like sign Buffon on like a contract expiration,
100%.
sign like Howard Aduriz, people like that. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what they're doing. It's like, I'm not doubting Cesc Fabregas as a manager, but it's like, it's 2024.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
it's not. It'd be a completely different thing if they were still in Serie B and they were
Yeah.
doing all this stuff. It's like, all right, cool. Like, they'll probably come up with that kind of a squad. But it's like, even if this team finishes like 13th, I'd be like shocked.
Shocked.
Like,
I was
out of my
shocked.
mind. I think we're all shocked.
That's funny. My biggest disappointment, I actually got an inside look at them yesterday because I watched his debut as manager for Napoli. I just think Napoli are going to be bad, and I think it's going to be a blemish on Conte. Like, seriously, the formation he was having them play didn't really make a lot of sense. For some reason, Di Lorenzo is now like just become a right center back and a back three. Like that's his position, no matter who he's playing for. And also really just didn't look good. They had to go to penalties to beat, I don't even know, the Moderna, I think it was, or something like that in the first round of the Coppa Italia. So Kvaratskhelia looked very lively, which I will say, I mean, you kind of expect that from him, but if they're able to bring in maybe an additional attacking signing, maybe they could not be an embarrassment, but I just don't think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be good. Uh-oh. Yep, hit me.
I thought they had like the best striker the world's ever seen, so I'm confused.
Oh, Victor Osimhen. Well, he's not playing right now because, like, you know, he's dead set on
Club.
he's dead set on getting this move. And what's funny is I bet if you well, yeah, exactly. And I bet if you put Conte on a lie detector test, he'd probably be like, actually, I like Lukaku better anyway. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's why you're going to be out of a job in 13 months.
That's awesome.
But
The
yeah.
narrative that you're most looking forward to for this year.
Kind of. I actually have the revitalization of Juve. Like, I actually think it's going to be really
We'll
fun.
just do this together then, because my narrative was, are Juve ever going to challenge again? So go on.
I think yes. Like I look at their sign. I think their signings have been really good. Douglas Luiz. He's not that Premier League elite midfielder, obviously, but when you put him in a slower league like Serie A, which it is, it's a transition league more, but it's still a slower league. He's going to be less reliant on physicality and all that stuff. I think he's going to excel.
Physicality will probably come more to the fore based on, or
Yes.
compared to the other midfielders
Yeah.
they're playing against.
Exactly. Di Gregorio they got in. I thought is a really good goalkeeper, signing a modern goalkeeper more so than what Wojciech Szczesny, who's been a great servant to the club, but he just isn't at that level anymore. And then Kefren Turam has been I think that was honestly one of the signings of the summer. Like, all jokes aside, to get him for 20 million euros, you know, out of Nice, like, I think he can be. He's not obviously going to be that. You know, you talked earlier, actually. I forget what team it was, but you're talking about the construction of that Juve midfield, where they had like a young Pogba and Vidal and Pirlo playing at the base. Like, I can kind of see something like that, where you have Luiz at the base, you have Kefren Turam doing the running on one side, because he has a lot more box to box in him than I think a lot of people realize. And then they've been linked with TN Koop Miners. The thing is, that deal is going to be like $50 million. I think that's too much. I would just rather play like McKinney or one of the other midfielders that they actually still have, instead of, you know, spending $1 billion to get to get Coop Miners if that means not getting another forward, which I think
also,
they need.
you know, we may have to remind our listeners, spending $50 million in Serie A is a completely different deal.
Yeah.
Than spending $50
Yeah,
million
exactly,
as a
exactly.
Premier League club.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say that's God. I was looking at their record transfers. Like I think.
Gonzalo.
Well, no. Sorry, not Juve. I just meant Serie A in general. I still think there was a Buffon when he first moved to Juve like 25 years ago.
Yeah,
that's still one of the 10 highest transfers in the history of Serie A.
Like 35 million or something around
Yeah,
there.
that's still one of their top transfers. So it's just a different level of spending when you talk about that league. You know, obviously it hurts that they weren't able to get into Debo from Nice as well. They were really heavily linked with him as a center back.
Their title charge is getting a loan signing.
Well, that's a
hijack from Villa.
Yeah. No, West Ham. It wasn't even
Ham,
Villa.
sorry,
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't even Villa.
Oh my
Sadly,
God, he signed for 52.9 million euros in 2001.
Buffon. Jesus, God, that's not even horrible as like a top 5 signing or a top 10 signing anymore. That's just a shit ton of money. But yeah, so I think Juve are going to be good. I think they're going to come back and be good. I think Moretti actually can contribute a lot in midfield as well. So I'm not mad at what Juve is going to be. You seem to be a lot more skeptical than me, though.
I think that sometimes as football fans we kind of get into this thing where we're like, this team is this because that's what they have been my whole life.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of times that's how it is with United. Again, not trying to slight them. I just think that a lot of times we're just like, well, United's going to take a step forward this year. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Juve is going to get back kind of to their bets, and it's like, well, why? Like, what,
but I think with Juve, you've actually seen slight progression over the past couple of years. Like they were seventh 2 years.
Awful.
Yeah, 2 years ago they were horrible, and then last year they were like second or third. And I think Mota coming in as a new manager also brings some much needed fresh ideas from Allegri.
Yeah, it's just I find it hard to really believe in a club that's captained by Danilo. So I mean,
look, I can't argue there. I really can't argue with you there. That's
and
tough.
now finally coming on to our last league. We've been going for over 2.5 hours. I hope some of you guys are at least still listening. But
remember,
again,
we're doing this for us, not y'all.
I say we plan to have this be a big blowout.
Yeah.
A preview. I mean, shoot, we're previewing the next 9 months of football, so
Exactly.
obviously a lot to get through. Ligue 1 winners. I was gonna go Saint Etienne.
For Saliba,
Saliba and
they're gonna get him on loan.
Going back there. No, obviously I had PSG.
Yeah, same.
But my biggest disappointment, I guess you'll disagree with this based on what we talked about earlier. I said PSG because of their what I perceive their Champions League performance to be. I see them as a team that's probably going to be round of 16 fodder in the Champions League.
Dang.
They're going to be in that knockout playoff, and I don't think they're going to they might not get a favorable draw in the round of 16, and I just don't think, when I look at their squad, I just don't, like, the stars thing is kind of difficult to put your hand on, but it's kind of, like, put your finger on, but it's kind of hard for me to see, like, that PSG squad that couldn't perform even when it had stars, and now it doesn't have those stars. And again, sometimes that's for the best for certain clubs, where it's like everyone just knows, hey, we're just here to go to work every day. We're not working so that we're not doing stuff so that Mbappe can be successful. We're not doing stuff so Neymar can be successful. We're not doing stuff so that Messi can be successful. We're all here to work, and we're gonna, come more together as a team and stuff like that. But I also think it's to be said, like, you need that quality or that elite level manager to bring the quality out in a different way. And I just think as far as the Champions League and the amount of depth that's in it this year, I just really don't see them being able to go as far as they would need to based on the amount that they've spent this summer and, what their goal is as a club and has been clearly for the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I have PSG as winners as well. I'm actually really excited to see what they're going to look like this year. Like, honestly, and I hope they don't end up doing the Osimhen deal. Like, there's talks that he's going to be the link, for 120. It's like, why are you so desperate to do that when you signed like 150 million worth of strikers literally the summer before in Colomwani and Ramos, who I admit neither one of them hit the ground running, but that was their first year in the new league. So
And then
I'm
they
not.
have Xavi Simmons out on loan, who I think would probably be their best forward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we talked about that one I think in the first episode, but I completely agree with you on that. Completely agree. That being said, though, I think if you were to tell any team like strip the PSG name away, because I do think they just get a slightly bad rap. If you just went up to any fan and you were like, "Hey, there's going to be a team in the Champions League that's got Barcola, who I think can be a star." Dembele, and then like Colomwani and Ramos kind of as like their attacking group going into, and with Marco Asensio also in the mix, going into the Champions League knockout rounds. Like, could that team make a final?
Man.
No, I'm not. Look, I'll tell you, Enrique played the shit out of him last year. Like, Enrique really likes him. Seriously, he even played him in a midfield three a lot of times. But I think if you were to ask someone, like, could that be a good level, a quality, high-level attack, people would be like, yeah, that team could possibly make it far. So I think obviously losing Mbappe, and like you said, like I think there's something to the, hey, now we don't have any agendas really. Like who, when you look at this team, has a really, it's like crazily enough, and like probably Dembele might have the biggest agenda or like, ego of anyone on the team. So I think they showed up their
King and
defense.
Lee's always had attitude problems in previous clubs, and
Hey, if you ask Heung Min Son, they might actually be true.
yeah, but it's just like I guess I think this is I look at this squad and it's like, dang, that's a really, really good team.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think if you throw up probably the top 2 or 3 sides from every country, I think you'd probably say the same thing. Like, I don't think this is a squad that's going to blow everybody away. And who are we talking about with the defensive, like Spurs with their fullbacks? I see a similar thing here. I don't think Nuno Mendes is going to shut down any right winger. I don't think Achraf Hakimi is going to shut down any left winger. They're athletic enough to, but the way that they play and their lack of defensive solidity is not a thing that you really want or need when you're battling for the Champions League. I mean, as much as we like to talk about City's free-flowing football, what makes them dominant is that they don't concede goals. What makes Real Madrid dominant is that, I mean, in the big game, they've had a lot of wild big games where they've had to score like 5 goals or whatever, but a lot of times they just don't concede.
Yeah.
Like that Thibaut Courtois doesn't concede. Rudiger doesn't concede. Like, that is really what makes these top Sides. And I think if PSG get into these shootouts in latter Champions Leagues when they have, like you said, even if Dembele is fit, it's like, okay, so we're going to be in a shootout against a team with Mbappe, Vinicius, and Rodrigo, and we have Barcola, Ramos, or Colomwani through the middle, and Dembele. Like, you're not going to win that. I think if they were better one way or the other, then I'd believe more in them. If they were either a better defense or a better attack, I'd believe in them a little bit more. That's why I think that they were a better contender for when they had guys like Mbappe and Neymar. It was like, well, shit, they're going to concede 3 goals, but these guys are
they
just
can
gonna do
score
stuff
4
on their own.
Yeah,
They don't really have the guys that are going to do that anymore, but also their defense is not 100% sorted out. They have good players, don't get me wrong, but like that top level, I don't really see it for them defensively.
Yeah. Real quick, because I know we're wrapping up, I will say I really like their signings a lot. I like João Neves as a DM. I thought the price was amazing. He was being linked for 120 million just a couple months before that, and they were able to get him for 60 plus add-ons. And then William Paucho, the center back, I think was a really big need. They needed an athletic left-sided center back to partner Marquinhos, so I really like that. But yeah, I agree with you. They don't have that firepower going into it. Real quickly though, like, if you were to say if there was a Bayern PSG matchup, say in a Champions League quarterfinal, who would you actually favor in that? I was just thinking about it.
I would say Bayern because of what I was talking about before, where I think Bayern has the firepower overall, especially in depth, where it's like they get into, I think either way, like if both teams are firing, then I think Bayern Munich has more firepower. But if both teams aren't firing, then I think Bayern are going to bring guys off the bench like Sané and Matthias Tell and guys like that. And when PSG make those subs, it's going to be like Kang and Lee, who's pretty good, and then Asensio, who's been like just really weird his whole career. It's been like he's talented, but not quite
a starter. Yeah, not starter level for any team.
And it's like you're bringing on Gonzalo Ramos, who I think even still to this day is kind of still living off of that hat trick that he scored against Switzerland in the World Cup, and it's just like I think I would favor Bayern Munich in that, especially like I said, having that destroyer in front of their back line to kind of take pressure off of it a little bit more. If they had that destroyer and then like a Kimmich and a Musiala in front of those guys, if they wanted to play him in midfield, I don't know why they continue to
play him right back
centrally, but I would favor Bayern Munich, honestly.
Okay, fair. I really have no idea. That's why I was genuinely asking. So,
and then lastly, our last part, the last thing that we're going to talk about, the narrative that you're looking forward to most in Ligue 1. This is what the people want to hear. This is what you guys have waited almost 3 hours for. Everyone wants to know. Okay, what is the narrative that you're looking forward to in Ligue 1?
Can Lyon keep up their form from the second half of last year? If you look just at the table. Yeah. Hey, if you look just at the table in the second half of the year, they collected 37 points. They were third in the table, I believe. That was after Pierre Sage came in. They ended up finishing sixth. And look, I really like a lot of what Lyon did. They brought in some guys. I don't even remember who they brought in, but they brought in some guys. Damn it! But I really like I think as long as they're able to hold on to a lot of their key pieces, if they're able to hold on to Cherki, if they're able to get the same type of season out of a guy like Lacazette, who was crazy for them. He had like 20 in the league for them last season, which I was going to say it's more of an indictment on Ligue 1, but I mean, if he's able to maintain that level. Said Benrahma, honestly, a guy who they had signed on loan, and everyone was like, what the hell is going on? He ended up being really good for them, like kind of an integral starter for them towards the end of the season. Their midfield actually makes a lot of sense now when you're talking about Kakare, Mangala. Tolisso is in there, but I mean, can you really count on him? No.
Jesus.
So
they've signed Niakate,
Yep.
Nuama, Oriol Mangala, Mikatadze, the Georgia legend.
Yeah.
Said Benrahma on a.
I'm not going to lose my mind about him. I think he'll be fine, but I'm not going to lose my mind about him.
Abner, Real Madrid legend. Colette Carr, they've signed some guys. It's just,
and the thing is, those guys that we're talking about in Ligue 1, that's like holy shit. They signed a bunch of really good guys. So
yeah, exactly.
Can they push for that Champions League spot? Is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, Lacazette looked not good in the Olympics when I saw him.
Nah, he didn't. But
he was playing next to Ronaldo, so I mean it's kind of hard to.
Exactly.
Finally, the narrative that I'm most looking forward to, and this is kind of more of a mini culture-ish topic, I guess, is Mason Greenwood's Marseille move.
Don't even want to touch that one.
If he's good,
he's going to end up back in the Premier League.
We're going to see whose morals are really.
Yeah. No one's going to give a shit.
I mean, we're Americans. We watch American sports. We see, oh, well, you don't want a guy who da-da-da. It's like, well, I saw you had Tyreek Hill on your roster, so I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got morals until a guy can lead them to wins.
That's what I mean. And so it's like if Mason Greenwood goes out there and scores 15 goals, I'm not like don't be shocked when whoever comes back in is like, are you guys selling Mason Greenwood?
Well, it's like people forget, like, Getafe was the only team that would have signed him on loan last year. All of a sudden, he performs for them, and now it's like they have a list of 5 teams who want to sign him. It's like, did you think he wasn't going to be good? Like, what was the...
Exactly. So. It's just, I'm fascinated by it because I'm more fascinated by what's going to happen afterwards. Because
that's actually a really good
show. He's going to fire off. He's probably going to score... Depending on where he
15.
plays, I say whether he plays through the middle or out wide, he'll probably at least have 15 to 20 goal involvements, and then once he has,
I think he'll play more through the middle just because they lost Aubameyang, so he'll probably have to fill that role.
I mean, through the middle, he'll probably have upwards of 20 goal involvements, and he's going to be scoring goals, and everyone's going to be looking around, being like, "Are we actually going to sign this guy?" Just 4 years ago, he was being blackballed out of football in general. And so now it's gonna be really interesting to see which clubs really look at themselves and say, I don't care. And to be honest, I don't really have a problem with it because it's just like if you need to win. This business is about winning. It's not about who can out-moral the other person
because people only give a shit about morals when you're like mid-table. Like if you're winning the league, no one cares. No City fan has ever been like, man, I just wish we would have been a little bit more cleaner with some of our signings.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
or
and
something
other
like
teams
that,
that are about to
so.
go down are like, man, we could have signed
We
this
gotta-
guy, but
Yeah.
I really want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of this club.
Yeah, exactly. We got a great group of guys, though. It's like, come on, dude, get out of here.
Classic.
So,
So this has been our big 24-25 season preview. We've covered the Champions League, the top 5 leagues, things that we want to see, transfers, all this big stuff. So if you're still around at the end, please leave a comment. All right, let us know that you've been here. All right, we really, really appreciate it. We're really enjoying this. Football back next weekend. Hopefully we'll have some things to talk about. Seasons are kicking back up. Soccer's coming back. American football's coming back. Maybe even touch on some college football, depending on whether Texas is good or not. Then I'll I'll touch on it if they're good. If they suck,
yeah,
I won't.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But please let us know in the comments anything you want us to talk about, something you want to see, maybe a new segment, anything that you would like. Just please let us know. We're very open to suggestions. Again, this is only week 3. We're still working out the kinks of the format and everything like that. But without any further ado, you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys next week.